Welcome back to the Art of the Flying Eye podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking with Echo Voxx. All right, so we are recording, and if you don't mind telling everybody exactly who you are, that would be much appreciated.
Hi, my name is Echo Voxx on TikTok and Instagram and all of them fancy social medias. I am a tattoo nerd and general weirdo who hangs around on the internet.
Fair enough, that works. So, my first question, I guess, since I've been kind of focusing on interviewing people that have experience in tattoo shops, is what is your sort of association with tattoo shops? What is your sort of like tattoo journey, I guess?
I am what my buddy Dustin calls the serial apprentice. I kept starting apprenticeships, and due to one reason or another, we end up leaving the shop, and I never end up actually getting to finish it. And of course, moving to a new shop, you'd have to start from scratch because they'd be like, I don't know what you learned from this other place, so we're gonna start
Right.
from scratch. I'd be like, cool, no worries, I got you. Did that 3 times before, among other things, COVID hit and I had to go kind of on an extended hiatus. But I also used to pierce when I was in college, and that was about 15 years ago in a tiny street shop in Glasgow.
Oh, really? What was the name of that
Yeah.
shop?
It is no longer running. It was just called Tattoo, and it
Okay,
was
fair
over
enough.
in the East End. Yeah. It was. I did not learn until much later on into getting tattoos and getting pierced and body modifications that was not necessarily a legit shop.
Ah, fair enough. So,
So I've seen kind of both sides of the coin, the like really questionable, maybe not so reputable beginnings all the way through to I worked in and was around several very big name shops here in Chicago, including.
gotcha. So, how did you initially get started with piercing?
I walked into the tattoo shop intending to get my nose pierced for the third time, and got to talking to the piercer. I was maybe 19. I was in Glasgow. Little known side fact, I am also a LARPer. I play Dungeons and Dragons, but not just playing Dungeons and Dragons with the dice and a table. I like to dress up as my characters and run around in a field or a forest with other like-minded people,
Awesome.
wailing on each other with foam weapons.
Fantastic. Anytime you get to
It's
hit your friends with
Yeah.
foam and pipes, it's a good time.
Oh, great. Oh, absolutely. And I lived with people like this too. So we were all like, this was how we settled roommate agreements quite frequently with a lot of my roommates.
Nice.
Um, yeah. So I walked in, and I mentioned this because I walked in and I was like, hey, I want to get my nose pierced. I was actually getting a nostril on this side, which is no longer in.
Yeah.
Got to talking about to the piercer where he was like, oh, I see you've already had your nose pierced. How long has it been out? The usual questions. And I
Yeah.
got to telling him exactly how I'd lost my nose ring, which was the weekend before. I was at a weekend event and I took a broadsword to the face, which took out
That'll
2
do
of my
it.
rings. Yeah. And it was the most entertaining story he'd ever heard. So he was like, you want to work here?
Honestly, sometimes I hear that a lot more frequently than I feel like most people would imagine. Like,
Yeah.
anytime somebody asks me, like, well, how do I get an apprenticeship? How do I get into a shop? How do I do this? Like, the first step is just go get tattooed, go get pierced. Like, put yourself in the situation where that opportunity, could possibly happen. And sometimes it just does. It's just like, hey, so we had this guy left. You want to be an apprentice? Like, yeah, it's
Exactly. That's actually the advice that I first got given when I came over here to the States about 7 or 8 years ago. I got the idea in my head, like, you know what? I think I'm going to jump ship from putting holes in people to I want to put art on people.
yeah,
That seems way more up my alley. And at the time, I was dating my now best friend, Dustin Badcat, aka Old Dirty Bad Cat of Tattoo here in
nice.
Chicago. Very talented black and white and like traditional trash artist. I love his stuff. He does that sort of that like West Coast real minimalist flash.
Very cool.
Yeah, love his stuff. He does very cool stuff. Um he we were dating at the time, and I was like really adamant, like I don't want it to be this whole thing that everyone's gonna say, oh, you are only tattooing, or you only got into this because your boyfriend's doing it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure it was like on my own merits, it was my own hard work.
Right.
And I actually for a very long time was really against him showing me anything, even though he'd be like, we can do this now. And
Right.
so I made him tell me, like, how do I go about doing this? If I walked out the store and you didn't see me ever again, how would I go about getting an apprenticeship? And that was the advice he gave me, was go around, make friends with people at the shop. And that's kind of how I ended up doing it.
Yeah, building rapport and networking is really, I guess, underappreciated by a lot of people. Networking is just huge. It's a huge part of basically any business, getting your foot in the door anywhere. Like if you're not putting yourself in the position to be around the people that you want to work for and with, it's just basically never going to happen. Like if they don't know you
100%.
exist, I mean, it's an entire no-go.
100%. And it's one of the best ways I ever saw someone get an apprenticeship tattooing, not piercing, because I still think my story is the best. My buddy Norm literally just showed up at the tattoo shop that my then partner was working at, and this is Dustin again, and he just hung out and started bringing in like, hey, I want to get this design I drew tattooed. Would I have to change much about it to make that work? On asking questions like that and asking artists for advice. So, if I wanted to draw something again in the future for my next tattoo,
kind of weaseling into
are
the
there
back
any
door.
tips? Yeah, you see, I loved it because I was like, not only are you setting yourself up here as someone who's interested, you're here,
Right.
You're listening to the artist, you're asking their advice.
Mm-hmm.
They're also like it's already cementing, like you say, you're going in that back door there. You're already kind of getting it in their head that you're doing the apprentice thing, and so that's that logical conclusion that if something opens up, someone eventually is going to get the idea of, Norm, you're basically apprenticing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's a huge thing, is even when I tell people to go in and meet tattooers and get tattooed by them and build that rapport, like if you show them your artwork and say, hey, so what would it take to get an apprenticeship? Like, how would I go about doing this? They're going to give you kind of tasks. They're going to pick out all the weak parts of your artwork and say, well, you really should probably work on this because this piece won't work as a tattoo. So try to do it this way. And they'll wait and see if you come back with that thing changed. They want to see if you are teachable. And if you're not, if you never show back up, or if you just are stubborn and don't ever change anything about your artwork when you're critiqued, they'll totally write you off. So yeah, he's basically doing their entire job for them. I think that's genius.
Yep. Like you say, asking for feedback on portfolios, that was the other big one that I got told by everybody who I ever spoke to.
Absolutely.
I have to say, I probably schlepped my portfolio, and I had like 7 or 8, not like big sketchbooks, where I'd carefully copy whatever design or thing I'd drawn onto the sketchbook page. So, because I didn't think, like, this was before I thought, oh my God, I could do like a flash page and glue it in there. Oh. Effort. It was A for effort. Didn't realize there were easier things to do.
Right.
I carried around the stack of sketchbooks around to probably maybe 50 to 100 shops within the space of about 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
In Chicago when I was first trying to do this on like my own steam.
Yeah.
I wasn't asking for an apprenticeship at any of these shops.
Right.
This was just going into every major shop I could think of. Any shop that had been mentioned in the newspaper, in a magazine, in like one of those tourist 5 things to do in Chicago this week. Anything. And I just said, hey, I'm not asking for an apprenticeship. That's my end goal. I want to know, if someone came to you as your prospective apprentice with a portfolio looking like this, what would you tell them to change? Just, I want your feedback. Just asking for portfolio feedback and saying, I'm not going to ask you for an apprenticeship at the end of this. I just would like feedback so I know what to work on so I can make a stronger portfolio.
Right.
And doing that. And I didn't think at first I didn't know about the going back part, so there's a number of them I never went back to, and now I'm like,
I
oh
mean,
wait, that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. Yeah, it's just one of those things that most tattooers, I guess, if they're interested, will, I guess, take it upon themselves to tell you, like, hey, so
Mm.
when you change this, come back. Um,
Right.
so, but I mean, of course, not every tattoo shop is going to be looking for an apprentice. Not every tattoo
Mhm.
shop can take on an apprentice. And of course, I hear a lot of people, a lot of tattooers say every day that it's becoming more and more oversaturated. Um, because I mean, like you can walk down one street in Louisville here specifically, and pass probably, like, no joke, 50 shops.
Oh wow.
Like, it's ridiculous. Just this one strip, like every fourth building is a tattoo shop.
I wonder, given Louisville's also a pretty big college town too. Like
Yeah,
you've got University of Kentucky's down there. I've noticed that especially around the major universities here in Chicago, you start to see shop saturation.
yeah,
Like around Loyola, there's like probably 8 new shops sprung up in this small neighborhood where I used to live within the past year. And there's that part of me that goes on the old school, you don't trust a shop that's been open for less than a year.
yeah.
uh at least that's what the artists that I worked with have always told me. I
Right.
don't know if there's merit to that, and I don't know if that's a regional thing, which now makes me interested.
Yeah, I mean, well,
um
so much stuff has changed, and it's changing
right.
so rapidly. We were talking about that on the last podcast episode I recorded. Um, a guy named Matt Bag of Donuts from Fairbanks, Alaska, he's tattooed everywhere, and we were
Mhm.
talking about some of the differences between what it was like even 10, 8 years ago and now, and so much stuff has changed. Like, just the entire
Sure.
attitude of the tattoo community, like how the business is run. I mean, it's just totally
Sure.
different.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree 100%. Admittedly, some of this might be differences between when I was getting tattooed versus trying to give them.
Yeah,
Like the difference between some of my first tattoos, like when I was in college, like this one under here is about 15 years old, to some of my most recent work. Like the difference in experience is just vast.
yeah,
It's insane. Whereas, say when I've got my first tattoo, it was very much that like stereotype of a tattoo shop. Like I found the scariest looking person I could find who was covered in tattoos, and I followed them until they walked into a tattoo shop and went, okay, yep, there's babes on the walls with boobs out. There's like an angry traditional tiger. I see a bunch of Sailor Jerry. This is the right place.
right. So now, is that the type of artwork that you like as an end goal wanted to be doing? Because I
I
mean,
did not.
what
I
was the
actually
style
I
of work
got
that you wanted to go into?
So I got super into a lot of really newer styles, modern styles. I got really big into heavy black work, like the Brutal Black Project.
Sure.
Trash polka, especially that like really like minimalist German stuff,
Mm-hmm.
where it's more textural than any sort of like concrete image or an item.
Right.
It's I
Like the
love and I had this dream that I was going to get into the industry, and my signature was I was going to do trash polka, but instead of red I would always incorporate blue.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, thinking about what I initially wanted to go into, like the style I wanted to sort of lean towards versus where I am now, is entirely different. Like, when I
Hmm.
first started tattooing, of course, the shop that I was at was an old school ish street shop, still had a lot of old school tendencies to it, kind of bikery. And so I got started out on basically nothing but like Cherry Creek Flash.
Oh
Just
wow.
lots of like little cherries and birds and like little skulls with stick shifters coming out of their heads, and just like goofy old biker stuff. I shouldn't say it's goofy, but
It's no, it's great. I love that stuff.
yeah, but yeah, my goal at that time was like, oh, I don't really like this kind of old school stuff. I want to go like new school, super bright colors, like real weird angles and everything, just kind of like create a lot of depth and big thick power lines around the stuff coming towards you. And like yeah, that didn't last long. Like I started getting into that,
It
and I
never
was,
does.
yeah, I was just like, no, I like realism. I kind of want to do like portraits forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I was shocked about that too, because I was always that kid that was like, I'll never do text or portraits. And now I'm like, I want lettering is this wizardry that my buddy Dustin can do that I'm just
Yeah.
like, teach me everything. I am obsessed with calligraphy and lettering at the moment.
Yeah.
Because what I got exposed to with Dustin when he was mentoring me, he's one of the few people in Chicago that still does hand lettering, like by
Awesome.
hand
Awesome.
completely. He does all calligraphy, all cursive, all of his script work. It's all he never uses fonts. Even
Nice.
he's doing I'm sure he won't mind me letting people know he's actually working on a comic right now that he's even doing the hand lettering on that on his own, because
Awesome.
that's the school that he came from,
Right.
is that you don't have a font machine, you don't have a computer. And in fact, he didn't even have a computer or an iPad until like last year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, similar story for me. When I was coming up in a tattoo shop, like we didn't have a computer. Like that wasn't a thing. And even when computers, were starting to become more common in tattoo shops,
Hmm.
our shop owner totally nixed that. He was like, no, it makes you lazy. Don't need a computer.
Yeah.
That's just garbage. You don't need all that stuff. So we were still in there in like 2014-ish, 2015 probably, still like with like the bottom of like a rounded bottoms of like bar stools and like CDs to
What?
make our arches. And yeah, just like hand drawing all of that stuff. Like just using random crap that we could find around the shop to try to like come up with like the arch for like shoulders, or like
Right.
to get lettering around something else. Yeah, it was
That's
ridiculous.
so cool. I find that I know it's probably like the worst to deal with, but I like there's a part of me that's like, that's kind of, this is how I know I'm getting older, as I start thinking, yes, because then you learn the rules before you break them.
I agree. Being able to do that has
Yes.
really, it really has served me well. Like learning on coil machines, learning how to do that, learning all of the, I guess, older school, because I wasn't taught how to like hands on how to like carve acetate stencils and all that stuff. I know the method, I've just never done it. But
Hmm.
yeah, like when everything else has broken down, like when I had computers break down and had iPads that wouldn't update and were frozen, and I had to get it done, you could always revert back to those old
Yep.
skills.
Yep. And I find it's kind of like being able to juggle those two skills as well, because there's things you can do on an iPad that you can never do by hand, no matter how hard you
100%.
try. And there's stuff you can do by hand that like I can sit there on my iPad for
Yeah.
days and weeks and be like try to like stretch and whatnot, but it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So being able to jump between them and marry those two skills
Right.
together is just it. I feel like that makes any artist next level.
Yeah. Because I mean, like certain things are, like you said, infinitely easier to design on an iPad, like little discrete pieces and whatnot, or even like planning out the flow for a whole sleeve. But the majority of the time, like to make sure that it fits somebody, I'm probably just going to grab a marker and just draw it on them to make sure that it fits their musculature. Um,
Right.
but on the other side, I could sit and draw for like 3 or 4 hours to make sure I get every tiny little detail in a stencil on a portrait. Or I can put it into Pony Lawson's app that I bought for like $1, and it just spits out a stencil in like 30 seconds.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome. And that's actually how I started. Was I had to, we didn't even have the stencil machines. Is I
oh,
Half of my job when I first started as an apprentice was taking the transfer paper
mm-hmm.
and over the
Trace the
with
tracing.
Yup. Oh god.
Yep. to get the
My favorite, it'd be like 6:45. The shop would close at 7 on a Sunday. It'd be friggin' freezing out, 50 below. Nobody would be coming in for a while, and it'd be like, okay, I need to get out of here and call
right.
an Uber, and I know it's gonna be $50 for the Uber. Angela would walk by and be like, "So I got a back piece. I need you to prep for tomorrow morning at 12."
Done.
Like, cool. Let me just get right on that. And I'll be here until midnight.
Oh yeah. Yeah, some of those big stencils were just a nightmare, especially like realistic stuff, which
Oh yeah.
it's cool that
Angela
you
was also, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's cool that with stencils for realism that you can go through and like manually pick out all the tiny little details that are relevant to you and discard all of
Mhm.
the unnecessary visual information. But it just takes forever. It takes so long.
Oh, it does. And it's also how you prepare your stencil too, because I've seen I've worked with artists, and I've seen artists who will do segmented stencils,
Hmm.
especially on big pieces.
Yeah.
And I've seen ones who are like, no, we're rolling the giant piece off, tearing it, taping it to you, and that's how we're doing this. And we're
Right.
going directly on that. And now I need you to trace that like 4 foot by 6 foot piece of paper onto another piece.
Yep.
So I've done both.
Yeah.
And Angelo was always one of those, I'm going to get it in one, guys,
Yeah.
which I never understood how he'd do it. I was always a little envious of that, because he'd always get these bigger guys who'd come in who'd be like, "Yeah, I work on the docks all day, and I'm getting this for my old lady," and he'd do this amazing traditional back piece,
Right.
put the whole thing on, and he'd just like stand there, look at it, and then be like, go. And then like one wipe and pull it all off with no issue, and he'd usually get it on the first go. Like,
Right.
what?
Some of that stuff, especially when you work in on a larger area and your, I guess, design is a little more simple, kind of leaning towards that old school style.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it doesn't like fractions of an inch don't matter as much. Whereas
Hmm.
if you're doing like some intricate, flowy, like filigree stuff where it's like all 3D and crazy, and you have to like kind of puzzle piece that into existing tattoos,
Sure.
I will absolutely sit and replace a stencil 20 times. Like no joke, 20 times to make sure that like that tiny little fraction of an inch gap is right where it needs to be. Maybe that's just my problem, but my brain won't let me not do it.
I 100% understand you, and I'm not like, I'm I'm of that group of artists who's like, it's tiny imperfections are okay. It's the big
Hmm.
picture that I'm mostly focusing on.
Right,
Does it look good on the whole? And I know
right.
we all kind of do that to a certain extent. But I've always been like less focused on the details of the piece, and that's where I've always struggled with in constructing tattoos and coming up
Hmm.
with designs, especially in design work, is getting down to those dirty details. Giving me scales on like a fish to do, I that's like the biggest middle finger I can think of someone giving to me.
See, that's kind of how
I
go ahead, go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say that's why I love neo traditional is you just hide it with more black.
Right. Yeah, you're not wrong. But yeah, like stuff like that, scales on snakes and dragons. It's kind of like it's the same feeling that a huge field of lettering gives me. Like something about just being a reproducer of lines bothers me.
Yep.
Like it takes me out of that artistic mindset, and it's just like, well, you're a human printer now. Have fun.
Yes. Which I find so hard to reconcile with the fact that later on towards the end of my tattooing career and where I'm at now with what kind of style I'd be going into or what I'd love to do is that I got heckin' into that woodcut style.
Oh,
Like
rad.
just plain black and white, super minimalist. I've got some examples of that here on my arm.
That's awesome.
Love that. I love that style. That's what I want to do, and just black, red, and gray. That's the only colors I want to fuck with. That's all I'm going to deal with.
Yeah.
And I know that's going to be a niche market, but I'm going to make it work. It's going to be fine.
So, I mean, what is your plan to like are you intending to actually like get back into tattooing at some point to try to like complete an apprenticeship or
The moment that's kind of been up in the air because kind of the longer that COVID goes on, it's kind of throwing a spanner in everybody's day.
Agreed.
Um, I have a lot of health issues, so working in any sort of public job, and
Hmm.
yeah, I know I bartend now. It's awful. Um, it kind of makes me a little hesitant. So
Yeah.
I know that's not going to get better. So it's more seeing how the rest of the world kind of comes together and in making sure that we're all safe and everybody can be as safe as possible,
Yeah.
and we're all looking out for each other a little bit. On that same note, tattoo shops, I have been tattooed twice now during COVID, since the pandemic has hit, and I have to say both times the shop felt like a far safer place to be than most
Right.
public places I've
Right.
been in.
Because
Just because,
we take it seriously. We understand
right,
how germs work, and
right,
we're I mean, yeah. Well, for the most part, depending on which shop you pick.
true.
Yeah.
But depending on what the requirements are in your state, like in Illinois, you literally just need a bloodborne pathogen certification, and that's it.
Yeah.
The location that you're tattooing out of might need like a business license.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
But like at least I know that in the shop there's the concern of physical contamination, so that's at least above and beyond than
Right.
say what's going to happen in the restaurant where I work,
Right.
where I had a small child fling a fry right out of their mouth at my face last week. Like that doesn't happen. Well, weird stuff happens in shops, but that doesn't usually happen in tattoo
Right.
shops.
I don't. Well, I was gonna say I don't think I've ever had a French fry thrown at me, but that's totally not true.
Not that was pulled out of a mouth.
I don't know. I think I was an apprentice at the time, and I don't think that they saw apprentices as like real people at that point.
That's another. Yeah, you're right. I wonder about that.
Oh,
It's like that Bill Hicks quote: "You're not a person until you're in my phone book." You're not a person until you're done with this apprenticeship.
Right. Yeah. Depending on the shop that you're at, sometimes that's just a thing. Yeah, the shop that I was taught at was infinitely better than the shop that my mentor was taught at. When my mentor was taught, he was like basically wiping his mentor's ass. Like no joke. He was like
Oh my god.
being a chauffeur on his own time to go pick up his mentor, drive him places, and like it was one of those situations like if you said no, you're fired.
Right.
They had apprentices like scrubbing black mold off the walls at this old shop that my mentor was taught at. They had apprentices picking poison ivy off of the back of the building to the point where one apprentice, to be fair, his punishment the actions for which he was punished were definitely punishable actions.
Sure.
But it got to a point where he was exposed so much to poison ivy, he had to start taking like pills and getting shots and wearing a hoodie in the summertime. Again, to be fair, he did not learn his lesson, and he kept doing the same action that kept getting him punished. I'm pretty sure that guy was being sketchy and like taking people's phone numbers off their consent forms. And that's why.
Oh my god.
Pretty sure that's why they were punishing him. And I can't remember if they eventually got rid of that guy or not. I'm pretty sure they did. I don't remember what was going on with that.
It always seems to be like the stuff I've heard from my previous mentors, like what they had to endure. It sounds like a hazing more than it is anything else.
Right.
But like what myself, I got off pretty light, I have to say, every time. And I'm pretty sure a part of that had to do with the fact that my significant other was usually in the same shop, and he would be standing there behind me, like in the doorway at all the other dudes. Like, I swear to God.
So nothing super sketchy is going to go down.
Right.
Yeah.
Some shops that I worked at, definitely sketch stuff happened, and I've definitely been on the receiving end, unfortunately, not from artists, from other staff that the owner hired on.
That's not good.
Yeah. Oh, we had an accountant at one shop who was like, he was a major conspiracy theorist of the sort of tinfoil hat variety, and way
Okay.
back in the day. Yeah, a little bit of that combined with a little bit of the Tea Party kind of variety.
It seems like
Yeah,
there's
I
some
know.
crossover.
Blast
Like,
from the past there. Blast from the past
right.
there, but like he was the full on like you can see Russia from my front door kind of thought
Right.
Palin was the greatest. Yeah, but regardless of his political beliefs, that in itself would have been like, okay, dude, you do your thing over in the corner. We're just never going to talk about that. But he would like come in with his conspiracy theories and would like show us his laptop and be like, have you seen this in Mongolia? There is a CIA spy satellite, blah, blah, blah. And that's why I don't eat onions.
Yeah, and oh my god, Jesus, I'm getting like crazy flashbacks here. We had a dude that was in the shop when I was the apprentice that like he seriously believed that there were two suns in the solar system. And for some reason, the government was lying to us and telling us there was only one sun in the solar system.
What? Love this. I love this.
Yeah, I mean that this was, I guess, the
This
least
is
destructive of his weird conspiracy theories. But yeah, it was that kind of vibe. Like
oh,
lizard people
yeah.
living in the hollow earth that steal the center of your toothpaste if you blink too fast, like that sort of shit. It was weird.
There's
It was
always
real
one
weird.
person around like every shop who
Yeah,
there's always one person like that. Either a regular, an artist, or someone who helps out occasionally. Like there's always one person who's a feature at every shop like that.
Oh, and speaking of people helping out the shop, there's always like that one tweaker that gets kept around because
Yes.
they're good at everything construction related, and you can just like shop owners just give them like $5 and they remodel the whole shop. I don't know if that's still a thing. Like the shop that I'm at now is just
We
like
did it
appointment
at
only.
the first shop that I worked at. We had a janitor that we all very lovingly nicknamed Murder Face. No, not after the Death Clock character.
So preceding
we-
Death Clock Murder Face.
No, it was after Death Clock, but we were like Murder Face and Death Clock can no longer use this. This guy literally looks like his face is a homicide.
Holy shit, Jesus!
Like the guy like he was very sweet and he was never anything but polite to me, but he just always gave me the sketchiest vibes. Like he had this I just got out of prison for murdering several people
Yeah,
or attitude around him, and he would always show up. He had a bunch of like really graphic serial killer tattoos that every artist in the shop had done, but it was like Jack the Ripper standing over his victim kind of thing. It was the kind of thing where it was like
right.
magazine quality. Every artist was like, I like the guy, he's cool, he cleans my station all the time, no fuss, he like does everything. I'm happy to tattoo him. I don't want my name associated with that. I don't want my
Fair
name
enough.
on that piece of work. Just not the guy or anything, but because the piece of work was so questionable or
Right,
like
right.
really out there. They were
Yeah.
like, it's good work.
Like
The guy paid well, but I'm not advertising.
Understood. Totally understood. Yeah, I've gotten some weird requests for stuff like that. Of course, I won't do like any symbols of hate. Like that's not a thing. Like you get the
Oh
fuck out of my
yeah.
shop. But I've had weird requests for like some dude wanted the gates at Auschwitz tattooed on him, and I was like, dude, why do you want this? And he was just like, oh, well, I've got this sleeve of like historical events. They're not all terrible, but just like major historical events that has affected like history, like affected where we are now. I was like,
Right.
oh, okay, I can see where you're going with that.
Okay.
Still probably not going to do that, but I can see where you're going with it.
Design change. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I've had to turn down a couple of pieces when I first started working in skin, where I had even friends coming in who were like, not just things like that, where it was like a tragic or a very awful history or something like
Mhm.
that, where it was just like straight up like a regrettable tattoo or an idea where like I had friends coming to me who were like, I want you to tattoo like a really graphic, veiny, but like really shittily done, like Steve-O did it in a car going over the like that Jackass tattoo. Like, I want you to do it like that, but I want like a penis on my butt cheek. And I'm like, I am not doing that, bro. You can have someone help you with your bad life decisions elsewhere.
Yeah, well, okay. For me, I think there's a fine line there.
This particular friend with context had a lot of other reasons for why they should not have done that tattoo.
Yeah, that can be a definite judgment call. Yeah. Like certain friends, you're just like, no, I know you're gonna regret this. I'm not gonna put that on you. Like, I'm not gonna be the cause of that.
Oh yeah, and full disclosure, I've gotten some like dumb tattoos too. Everybody's got one of those. Like, we got silly tattoos. It was not the greatest decision at the time.
Right.
Everybody's got one, or at least considered getting one.
Yeah, I mean that's where I was kind of going with that. Is like, I've got some tattoos that I think a lot of other people would consider ridiculous. And I've done some tattoos on quite a few people that I think a lot of people would consider ridiculous, but I still feel like I'm in the realm of taking tattooing seriously, like not just slapping any ridiculous bullshit on absolutely anyone.
Right.
Because I mean, I've got a tattoo of one of my dead goldfish.
Oh,
his name was Edward.
Rip Edward.
R.I.P.
I had as a joke tattoo that literally the reason I got this tattoo is because my friend Norm said nobody will get it, and I went, the hell I won't. Hold my beer. Yeah. It had to get covered up because it also got horrifically infected. Oh yeah, it just looked bad, so I was like, the skin looked mangled, so I was like, I gotta do something just to cover it up. And funnily enough, covering it with some heavy black work actually ended up perforating the skin enough that it was able to stretch and heal a lot better.
Cool.
Right, but you can still see the outline on my left leg of, I had a hot pink power fist that said power fist with a big heart over the eye.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that a lot of people don't seem to understand is with cover-ups specifically, like, it's more about like hiding the old piece than just kind of like whitewashing, just like slapping a sticker over it. Because even with solid black, it'll like raise up the old outline and certain pieces of it. You'll still kind of be able to see that through there.
Oh yeah.
But
so I'm in the process of blacking out my entire left arm. This is a project I've had ongoing for a while, and
which is awesome.
Of course, a lot of my oldest tattoos here on my left arm are being covered up by it.
Yeah.
And wearing tank tops all this summer, I had so many people ask me, because you can see very clearly, especially right here, I had a very poorly done outline of a snake. Very traditional snake with its mouth open, about to strike. And I had gotten minor surgery on this arm so many times that the line work was so butchered, there was no way in hell I was ever going to go back and finish it, get the color or shading or anything like that. It was so blown out under the skin that there was no point in finishing it. So I just blacked over it.
Right.
And you can still see the outline and where the breaks in the line. You can still see the scar tissue. Like, getting a tattoo will hide, but I like to tell people specifically, or I used to whenever people were coming in for cover-ups, is that the cover-up will obfuscate, but it won't completely cover it.
Right.
It'll disguise it mostly.
Right, exactly.
And, standing at like this distance and talking, nobody, unless they're like looking at your arm like this real close, no one's going to notice.
Right. It's camouflage. Like, it's not going to completely obliterate the old tattoo. It's just you have to find some way to hide it in something else so that it's not recognizable.
Yep.
But speaking of, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just said it's fun.
I was gonna say back to images that you feel like no one will ever get. So for a long time, I've done some Black Friday tattoos, but the shop that I started at, we refused to do that for 10 years. So people would always come in and ask about getting basically just people that wanted just cheap tattoos. They didn't care what it was. It was just like, I've got $13. I want to get a thing. So I made this just awful awful like sheet of flash. It was just like, I'm a dumbass, and like all these other like weird things. And then there was like a pile of poop with a little banner
I love it.
that said, I poop too much. And
yes, let me guess, that was the most popular.
Oh my God. I had so much interest in that tattoo specifically. I was just like, yeah, all these things. Nobody's ever going to get any of this stuff. So many people wanted to get the I poop too much tattoo. Like, blew my mind.
I love it.
It was so ridiculous.
God, the last that I got a similar one. The last shop that I worked at, me and my mentor, we didn't do Friday the 13th. We didn't do Halloween specials or anything like that, because every time you'd be like 13 tattoos for $31 or whatever the deal is, and they'd be like, yeah, but can I get it like this? But can I also have it purple? And then just completely redraw. In fact, can I just get this design instead?
Right. And at that point, it's just a waste of your time.
Right. So eventually we did this. It was like, okay, it's $50. They're all for the shop minimum, but they're all slightly bigger than shop minimum size.
Right.
No changes, no substitutions. You can either get them black and white or color. That's it.
Yeah. And it helps to have like a gatekeeper out front.
Yeah.
That is just like stern with everybody. Is like, no changes. Nothing changed. This is the way it is, or get out.
So that was my job during those sessions, because he was like, as good an idea as it would be to throw you on the machine and be like, okay, churn out a bunch of these on a bunch of different people. You'll get a lot of practice and skin. I need you up there wrangling the crowd. We just need to get through the madhouse today, because I think we had a line out the block.
Yeah.
Like,
and that is a supremely important job. Like, whoever is doing that, they like at those type of events, they are my 100% my favorite person ever, because you are freeing up so much time and hassle to just make the shop money. Like it just takes so much stress out of everybody's lives to have that dedicated person doing that. Luckily the shop that I worked at, they had a pretty rudimentary like callback system where I could get people like, okay, you're gonna get Ghost B, Ghost C. Okay, bump. We've got your input. So the artist already had, like, while I was calling up, going, yeah, we're ready for you if you'd like to come in. Artist is already switching out their station. I'm printing out a new stencil to go, and like we had this well-oiled machine going, and we were like prepared for it. But we had one design that was Dustin did one that it was a ghost, but with his butt exposed, like his pants had pulled down and he'd been pantsed, and it just said boo-hoo. And we're like, this is dumb. It's like, it's not even funny. It doesn't make sense. A ghost with no pants. It's not even a cute design. Like, you drew it like a stick figure. What's the problem with pantsless ghosts?
I loved it. I
don't understand.
I wanted to get it.
Oh yeah, awesome.
No, I wanted to get it. Yeah, that was the worst part of that day. Well, probably not the worst part. And really, it's like first world problems. As we worked that whole day, and at the end of it, every single artist was too tired to want to tattoo me.
Oh,
darn!
Damn, you didn't get to experience wet fire. Like, I was talking about that on the last episode too. Holy shit! Like I'm the worst at getting tattooed. Every tattooer, everybody that works in a tattoo shop, period, that I know, are the worst tattoo clients, because
I'm a huge baby.
Yeah, same. Yeah, absolutely the same. I cannot do it. The worst tattoo that I've ever had was behind my calf, like behind my knee, that real kind of like thin webby skin.
Oh, in the ditch.
Oh yeah. And I was 100% like the big bikery looking dude, like laying face down on this table going, girl, like fucking making all sorts of noises and gripping the hell out of the table. Like, it was bad. I'm a giant baby.
Oh, I believe it. I'm a huge baby. For me, my worst one was my sternum, actually.
Yeah.
And like, I don't mind showing you here. I've got this rib piece. Cool. Where I've got this text right here, and then this symbol, and I got all of that done in one go. It just says a woman king, sword in hand, and then my family crest in the middle.
That's cool.
My buddy Norm did that. He's now out of Tinta Cantina in New Mexico, in Albuquerque.
Awesome.
he started apprenticing like just before I did.
Yeah.
And this was one of his first tattoos. So he was all like excited to go. And I don't know how I survived this. I genuinely have no idea, because that's like what, maybe 2 or 3 hours work. Maybe.
Yeah.
It took him 7.5 hours, and we're still technically not done.
Okay, so
he bloodlined the entire thing to outline it.
Okay, was his
then
stencil
he outlined
disappearing?
it. No.
Oh God.
That was his first pass, was bloodlining.
Yeah.
Because he was like, "This will give me extra crisp letters," and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Then he fine lined every letter and the logo in the middle. Then he went through and filled it all in. And then he went through again a third time with the fine liner to outline it again.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. It's blowout central, but all like in towards the back of the tattoo.
I mean, at least
7 hours.
Oh
Yeah.
No.
It was 7 hours and it was hell. I'm laying there, like, at this point I was like, I don't even care that my shirt's up over my head. I cannot look any of you people in the face.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
I need Norm, I need you to be done. I need you to tell me exactly how close to being done you are. And I said, all I remember is that even the meanest, nastiest tattoo artist in the shop was being nice to me and like feeding me chocolate into my mouth and going, "You good? You good? You good?" And like that should have been my first clue that this was gnarly.
Yeah.
And because even he felt bad for me, but I just remember sitting there being like, "Norm, when I get apprenticed, I'm gonna learn how to tattoo so good that you're gonna want to get tattooed by me. Just so that when I have the luxury of tattooing you, I'm gonna be heavy-handed as fuck."
Holy shit. Yeah. No, I mean,
yeah.
There are some tattoos that I look back at that I have done where I was like, yeah, that took way too long. But I had to have that experience to get to where I am now.
Right.
Yeah. Like, there was at one point, speaking of bloodlining, was doing an entire rib panel that was I think a POW MIA big thing with like the rocker above it and below it and the face and the helicopter and all that stuff. And yeah, I want to say like about a quarter of the way through it, like my entire stencil basically started to just wipe off. So it's just like, oh shit, what do I do? What do I do? And this was like within the first like 6 months of me being out of my apprenticeship. So I was just still nervous, just tattooing people to begin with. And of course, like with coil machines, you don't really, it seems like most of the people that I know that started on coil machines, it takes like 2 to like 4 years, basically just to get a solid handle on all the variants in your machine, like being able to tattoo or to tune it as well as you need to be consistent with your hand, to like find that proper hand speed and depth and sound and all these things that go into working properly with a coil machine. And yeah, like first 6 months, I'm still just basically holding this foreign, like 14-ounce vibrating chunk of steel above my hand and hoping for the best. And like 3/4 of my stencil just disappears. Like, oh no, like that will pucker your butthole.
Oh, I'm puckering here on your behalf, and this isn't even happening to me.
Yeah, like, I mean, think about that whole rib panel, and the dude is already in a ton of pain because it's ribs. He was a tiny little skinny guy. Like, he had like no body fat, no muscles. He was just skin on top of rib cage. And yeah, he was not having a good time, but it took so much longer than it should have because I just didn't want to totally screw it up.
Yeah, that I actually covered up one of my first tattoos I did here, which same thing happened to me, and I had to strap my hand down, and of course my mentor is like watching. He's very helpfully not helping me pull skin for myself because I'm doing this one-handed on my own self. I had to strategically adjust clothes. I had clothes. I'm pretty skinny to begin with,
Yeah.
thankfully for me, because I was just able to put like clothespins in strategic places and
Yeah.
get enough tension that it was okay.
That's actually
Same
a good
thing.
idea.
I had not let the stencil sit and dry long enough.
Yep.
I thought, oh, I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette and I'll be right back. Not
Yep.
realizing, and then I put like a piece of paper towel over it so that when I went out, it would like not brush against the inside of my
Yeah.
sleeve. Well, I lifted up that paper towel, and of course, it took like half the stencil with it.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh no, I can totally do this. I know my own design here. I'm just doing like a little fine. It's gonna be great. Did like the first line, wiped. It went away. It was gone. And I had like I cried. I think I just gave up and then walked out of the shop, went home that day and was like, I can't. I'm never tattooing again. I can't do this. I'm so bad at this. It's the worst. I quit. I'm done. I'm stupid. And I can never handle this. So for a very long time, what I had under here before was like a little like Stussy S that had like just one little line next to it.
Nice. Yeah.
Which was really faded. I hadn't pulled a great line either.
Yeah.
It was like double failure.
At least there's that benefit of it. Yeah. But
it was a good lesson tattoo. I have a lot of those.
I mean, you kind of have to. Like, you kind of have to. You have to have those sort of progressive, I mean, if you want to call it a failure, progressive failures to build up, to really know what you're doing.
They're learning moments.
Right.
My mentor actually has the best one. I'll see if I can get Dustin to send me a picture of it. Dusty had a previous ex to, distract from the fact that he didn't have rent that month.
Okay.
Came home having done during his apprenticeship a girlfriend tattoo with the heart and the classic name through the ribbon on himself. That's how I learned the clothespin trick. Is that's how he did it on himself. So he comes home and he's like, but Audra, I don't have rent, but I got your name tattooed on me. And
the kiss of death.
It was also not a very well done tattoo. So he learned the most of, well, they were dead before that. He learned a lot of tattooing do's and don'ts from that tattoo, as well as that it was also, he learned it was a failure on that front too, is you can't make up for not having rent with a tattoo.
Right. Yeah. And some people are probably going to hate me, but yeah, with like name tattoos, especially, like, you can't make up for like caring enough about a partner, like, by getting their name tattooed on you. Because it seems like 100% the only people that actually like come into the shop to get their significant other's name tattooed on them, like something that reminds that person of them or something like that, totally different. But the name thing, especially with like somebody's girlfriend or somebody's boyfriend, or like the old school biker stuff, like property of.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, you saw a lot of those. But yeah,
I would say you're right. In my experience, that's absolutely true. I think
like you're trying too hard. You're trying too hard.
Yes, you get the and now this is obviously not every case. I'm sure there's some instances where this can be very meaningful and very romantic.
There's always,
but 100% of the time that I've seen someone coming in getting a name, it's because they're too unoriginal or out of touch with their partner and personality and relationship to think of anything better to represent their love or togetherness.
Right.
It's like, well, if you were told right now, gun to your head, of course not actually, that you had to get a tattoo of something that represented your significant other and your affection for them.
Right.
I'm sure you'd have a million ideas of like, oh my God, they like cake. I could do something like this. Oh my gosh, they're a hairstylist, the scissors. Or,
even like this flower is their birth month, or like something, anything other than a name.
If we still have to stay with text, this is their favorite poem.
Right. Yeah.
Or a line from a book or whatever. But like when you land on, well, what are you gonna get? Their name? It's like, what do I like? Well, they have a body. Yeah, but so do I. Hold on.
But I mean, it's like,
I got one of those.
It's like branding yourself though, like to sort of like show everyone. It's like, look
Right.
at this name. I'm attached to this person. Like, look at this person. Like, it's for everybody else, and it's not
Like
to
you can't.
remind you of
Yeah.
something. It's like you're
It's,
trying to prove something,
it feels like a bumper sticker
kind of.
where it's got all the like all the same amount of depth of if you're reading this, you're too close. Or my other car is a bicycle.
Oh, burn.
It's like the same level of like this tells me something about you.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what, but it's something.
and I mean, if somebody gets a name and they're really happy with it, that's cool, I guess. Like, it's really not my
Right.
place to judge. Like, it's not my tattoo. I don't have a say over it. But there are so many times that I've seen somebody get somebody else's name tattooed on them, and they'll be back literally a week later. It's like, oh yeah, I need to get that covered up. I was like, what happened, buddy?
And
What happened?
it was not forever. The only time I think names, I think I've seen people getting names in
Pets.
general that it wasn't like pets, children.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Grandparents, like memorial, like my granddad,
Yeah.
he served in whatever, he served wherever, this was his name, his rank and whatnot, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Memorial kind of stuff. But like relationship names, I have never encountered one that wasn't like
Even parents.
next week's.
Like,
Even, yes.
I've had people get like their parents' names, and if they're still alive, like, stuff goes south. It's weird.
Oh yeah. I was actually, Nate and I were actually, my roommate Nate.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware, Nate Moran is my roommate.
Yeah,
We were
I've seen the
watching,
TikTok videos.
Yeah, we've been watching those tattoo shows of cover-ups, people getting cover-ups of like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And we were just watching that the other night of someone who had gotten like their dad's name, and then the next week they found out their dad was like a bank robber and that's where they were most of their childhood.
Right.
And whereas we were like, but that's cool.
Kind of, yeah. Like, it's got some edge to it.
Not to invalidate that someone was clearly like, I felt neglected by my dad because he was a bank robber.
Right.
How dare he do this? Like, fair enough. Okay, that's what ruined your relationship with your dad. But also, you got this tattoo a month ago for your dad's like 50th birthday, and he was getting it covered up already.
Yeah, covered up so many names. Oh, I think the worst one was my mentor had done a tattoo. He was tattooing, let's see, who was it? I think he was tattooing what was her name? I can't remember the lady's name. We knew it for the longest time. We made sure to memorize these details because it was ridiculous. But she was getting her husband, I think it was her husband's name, like this. So they were definitely like legally linked. They were married. And she was getting this tattoo, and she was telling us, oh, I love my husband. We just went on vacation. We did this. We did that. Like, we've been together for like 20 years. Like, nothing could ever pull us apart. As he was bandaging the tattoo that she had gotten, she gets a phone call, and she's like, hey, honey, how are you? And just a couple seconds go by, and we're all just kind of like, of course, he's standing there with the bandage, like waiting to get back to it, not want to interrupt the phone call. And she just goes, what? Like, increasingly more emotional. And yeah, like, she starts like crying, and she just hangs up the phone, and he's like, what just happened here? Are you okay? Like, can I help you? Do you need something? She's like, he just called, and he said my stuff is on the lawn when I want to come get it.
Oh my God.
She had just finished getting this tattoo, and it just, in an instant, over. Like, I tend to not be like a superstitious kind of dude, but I mean, like, when that happens, everybody in the industry tells you, just like, oh no, names are bad luck. Names are bad luck. Don't do it. And you're like, yeah, bad luck, whatever. And then you see some stuff like that, you're like, I guess that might have some weight to it. Luck. Right.
There's the other one that I saw, that the only time I've ever seen a child's name not be a good one.
Yeah.
This was not one that I did or any of my mentors did. This was young guy and his girlfriend came in, and he's getting like a little boy's name tattooed on his collarbone. Cute. You're getting the kid's name. Oh my god, adorable
Yeah.
for the kid. 2 weeks later, beautiful script work. Tattoo healed up nicely. The guy comes back in and he's like, I need this off and you need to do it today and preferably now, or I swear to God, I'm getting a belt sander. Like, I need this name off me
I've seen that
now.
happen
I
too.
cannot wait another moment. Yeah. Had to tattoo scar tissue of that once.
Yep.
It did not go. I was terrified. But yeah, so talking to the guys like, whoa, what happened? Is it after determining it wasn't infected, it wasn't causing him discomfort
Yeah.
physically, we discovered the girlfriend had turned out to be unfaithful and the kid was not his.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he had
That's rough.
he had like Michael, firstborn, birth
Oh my
date,
God.
all the stuff. Yeah.
Like in depth. So not even just like a name, like a random name. Like,
It was like to commemorate my firstborn child.
no.
I know. And we're all sitting there in the back like,
That's so rough. I mean,
that's so bad.
you gotta feel bad for that. Like that's so bad. But yeah,
I think the artist like did it. It was like, I'll just like black it out for free if you want,
right.
man. He's like, okay, get it out, just get it off me.
I think one of the worst ones that I had is like I am always so paranoid about like lettering and dates and making sure like it's permanent. Like I want to know that the thing I'm doing on you is 100% right. So anytime I have somebody do like lettering or dates or anything, I make them write it down on a piece of paper, or more recently, like write it down on a layer in my tablet, in whatever file I'm working in their handwriting, so I know that I can't screw it up. And even then, I've got that little voice in the back of my head. It's like, hey, so is that right? You should Google that again. You should spell check that. Make sure it's right. And so I had this older guy come in for his son's death date. And like, I felt so bad for this dude. I was trying to help this guy out as much as I could. And right. And like, and his son was an adult. Like the guy was maybe like late 60s, early 70s, something like that. And so I was like, okay, man, I'll fix you up. We'll get this right. Just write down everything that you want, like as far as lettering, write it down on this piece of paper, so I know I can't screw it up, and we'll get this on you as soon as we can. And so we do the tattoo. Like he approves the stencil. He's the one that wrote down the initial information.
Right.
And he looks at the stencil on paper, looks at the stencil on him, looks at the tattoo after it's done, happy with all of it. And then he comes back 2 or 3 days later. He's like, you fucked up my tattoo. You screwed up my tattoo. It's your fault. And
oh, no.
I was like, whoa. What did we mess up? And he's like, you put the wrong date on me. You screwed it up. I was like, hold on a second. Hold on. And it just so happens that I hadn't gotten around to cleaning my station yet. Like in my little pile of drawings over in the corner on the counter.
Right.
So I was like, hold on. I think I've still got this. Let me sort through this. And I pull out this piece of paper in his handwriting from when he came in and was like, isn't this the same date that you have on you that you say is wrong? Like, you wrote this, man. And I wasn't going to be an asshole and just be like, you screwed it up. It's your fault. Because he's already going through some stuff. But it was just like, isn't this your handwriting? He was like, oh, yeah, I guess it is. And I was like, cool. We'll get this sorted for you. And it just so happened like it was spaced just right that we could kind of like blast some white over a couple little lines and add one more to make, to make like, we made like a 7 into a 4, I think it was. Right. And it looked fine. Looked totally like it was supposed to be that way. But yeah, just having that interaction, like that is what I want to avoid. Like all of that.
We used to have people write it out, photograph it, and then we would make them sign it and date it that this way. And we had like a whole stamp that we would put on like paper like that it would be like, it stamped and said, I approve this lettering as of this date, and had a line so you could, all right, sign that. That's what this is the lettering you want. So
Right.
yeah, if anyone came back, be like, you signed this.
Yeah, that's not a bad
You
idea.
literally.
That's not a bad
Yep. And
idea at
then
all.
that way we could when we moved to before my career ended, we had before we moved to the digital check-in sheets and the
Hmm.
permission sheets and everything, we could then take a picture of that and have that digital copy attached to their file forever. So if they came back in even years from now and we're like, hey, well, you got this artist 10 years ago who did this tattoo here got the lettering wrong and couldn't pull anything like that.
Right.
But everybody I know in the tattoo industry right now is getting out of it, and everybody I know in like the fashion industry is now trying to get into tattoos.
So, well, with the whole COVID thing, I've talked to a lot of artists recently about that. It it kind of showed how fragile tattooing is,
Yeah.
um, just as an entire industry. If anything like this crops up again in the future, ever, with like
Mhm.
forced shutdowns, and I mean the
Yeah.
necessity of shutting down like public spaces, especially where you're going to have to be so close to another person, and you don't have like the benefit of working in like a doctor's office where you can see
Mhm.
whether or not they have they're sick or have any sort of like health problems, or like you can't really have access to their medical records. um and it just is sort of like threw us all into this kind of fairly desperate place where we couldn't do the thing that brings in the majority of our income. So it was
Right.
either like find something else and sort of find a different income stream or income streams, and try to kind of diversify that and rely less on tattooing, or starve.
Absolutely. And I think I think that it's interesting because at least here in Chicago, you call into any tattoo shop in the city and they're booked out for weeks. Like
Yeah.
even if I go into my old buddies and I'm like, "Hey, you got any like I'd like to get tattooed. What's your next available booking?" And I know I've squeezed in friends before my official latest booking or whatever, and like
Yeah.
even kind of pulling on like friends and connections. Like I think the last tattoo I got when I went in around my birthday in the middle of January and was like, "Yeah, I would like to do this for my birthday." Didn't get to the next available appointment was the end of March,
Wow.
and so it's booked out, and so it's like like lockdown almost had more people has people who get tattoos
Hmm.
kind of I feel like it kind of made it really obvious, as you say, exactly how fragile the industry was. So now there's this clamoring of more people than ever want to get tattooed, more people than
True.
ever are like, well, if I'm in this environment in this world where I can work from home and have a mullet and green hair and spikes through my nose and tattoos on my face, and that's no longer an issue or a
Right.
barrier to me being employed, then what the hell is stopping me?
Hmm.
So I feel like now that's also a very specific demographic of people who are able to afford to get tattooed right now
Yeah.
too. Um,
Well, I
I
mean,
know not everybody's in that same boat.
true, but it seems like a lot of people, I mean, not just tattoo artists, are getting out of whatever career they were in and sort of exploring, like working for themselves, or like hell,
Yeah.
half the people I know are basically like half their income is like OnlyFans now. Um,
Right.
yeah, I mean, so many people have moved from like working these corporate jobs or like working retail or something like that to doing some sort of contract work or working for themselves, and realizing like I don't have to sit here for like 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day, like hating my life to get enough money
Right.
to survive. Like I can do, like it's a realistic possibility to do these other things, to do like gig work or whatever to I mean pay my bills and stay alive.
Make ends meet. Yeah. And I think that's well, I guess I've seen always seen sort of a lot of tattoo artists, particularly ones who um have very heavily utilized social media as an advertising or marketing platform,
Hmm.
because social media is both such a huge benefit, like boon to the tattooing industry as well as such a huge curse in some
Right.
ways. Now it's easier than ever to share your work, but it's also easier than ever for someone to steal your design and copy
True.
it and post it and also get a
Hmm.
million likes out of it.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately kind of become my little pet peeve subject and my little bugbear that I keep getting into with people. I really need to stop arguing with people on TikTok about what constitutes art theft and
Yeah. Sometimes it's just
plagiarizing
not worth
someone's
it.
tattoo design.
It's not worth the
They're
time and the
wrong.
frustration. I know a lot of them are.
Dirty little art thieves.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not.
I keep trying to.
Your
I try to tell
frustration
myself it's
is not
not
going to
for
change it.
them. That's true. I try to tell myself it's not them that I'm trying to convince. It's the people potentially reading it who are going to see this and be like,
True.
"Oh
I can
wait,
see
that's
that.
not okay."
Right.
But at the same time, it's like that's also a problem that we all. I'm sure you've dealt with it yourself in the industry, and seen it happen up close in person. I've certainly seen it happen with other artists I've worked with people, other artists in our social group,
Mhm.
flagrantly copying designs and altering, like, oh, I did it in green instead of blue, so it's different.
Right. And
And
to some extent, it
yeah,
is nuanced. To some extent, there can be an argument made in some of that because, like a lot of the old school dudes that were doing their flash, there were incredibly similar design ideas with minor changes because those were the
sure,
standard sort of ideas that people wanted tattooed on them. It's like how many
right,
ways can you possibly find to make up an infinity sign? Like how many ways can you really do that?
exactly.
Um,
And like, so my last stint in a tattoo shop was with the Museum of Modern Tattooing. So
cool.
very cool place. Oh yeah, if you ever get a chance, if you come and visit in Chicago, if they're still open and Kathy's still around, I'll ask her if she can show us her collection because I think
Oh,
she
rad.
just sold it and she took all of the artifacts and the museum pieces with her, so it's in a museum with nothing in it right now.
Yeah.
But she and Pops have been touring and tattooing since like the 60s.
Yeah.
So they've got like they had original acetate stencils up on display and stuff like that, which I was shocked to find are pretty easily found on eBay. Like I have a few that I found on eBay that were maybe like 20-30 bucks and I have them framed. They're
Some people are selling them on
very
Etsy.
cool. Yep. But like like I have to remember that where tattooing came from, which I'm sure you know, it's that history of, well, this was done by some guy who took a doorbell and turned it into a
Hmm.
pen that he could put ink under some guy's skin, was charging a nickel for a tattoo or whatever.
Right.
Had the same rag bucket as four other artists, heavy air quotes, that they're like, oh, let's just wipe you down,
Right.
stick
Right.
that back in the rag bucket. They're sharing the same ink thing that they're
And
just licking it down
yeah,
between
yeah. And sometimes
artists, and that
it was even like assembly line. Like if you were
yeah.
set up in a shop, like you just had boards just for simplification. Like it was entirely a money business. Like that's it. Like
And
Philadelphia
the
Eddie.
sailors coming in.
Like
Mhm.
Philadelphia Eddie got into it not for a love of tattooing initially. Philadelphia Eddie, like back in the day, was just he was rowdy as hell and was just
Yeah,
like, oh, you mean you can make money doing that? Cool. How do I get into that?
I'm doing it.
Right. And they
That's how
told him,
Pop started it.
yeah. So I mean, I definitely appreciate the current attitude of having love for the industry, for the process, for that community,
Sure.
and that respect for tattooing. But let's not forget, like you were saying, that it started out as kind of a money game. Like
Right.
you would have your sheet of flash, just like your limited menu options, and somebody would come in and say, oh yeah, that thing, and you would sit down for your line work, then move over to the next chair and get black shading, and then the next chair and get color, and they would wipe you down with like the communal blood bucket.
Even before that, though, like I was watching an NPR thing recently about the oldest tattoo shop still running in the world in Israel, which has been
Cool.
open since the Crusades or something like that.
What?
And yes, I know, it's so cool. There's a tattoo shop that has continuously been running on that site since like the Crusaders or something like
That's
that.
cool. I need to know
Uh,
about this.
Very, very cool. I will see if I can dig it up and send you the link, and then we can
Sweet.
talk more about it.
Yeah.
It is very cool. It's fascinating. So, like, they were NPR was talking to the guy who runs the place now, and he was showing he's got like medieval tattoo stamps where it's literally ceramic with the design and a
What?
negative that they dip it in ink, slap it on your arm, and there's your tattoo stencil.
What?
And yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
it's like, and it's like, on the one hand, technology has not changed all that much in tattooing, but at the same time, it's like kind of like with computers, where for years it was, these are our computers and this is how I know the numbers of things I have, to suddenly I have this little glass computer box that tells me a
Right.
million things at drop of at I poke the screen in a random sequence of orders,
And then it tells you
and
whether or not
pizza
the
shows
pug
up at
has
my house.
bones.
Yes, or pizza shows up at my house.
Right. Preferably both.
And yes, usually, well, I don't know, sometimes the pug doesn't have bones and then two pizzas show up at my house, so.
That's legit. Yeah,
Right?
that seems like that needs to happen. That seems like a no bones, some no bones
So
activities.
so it's like, I have to, like, it makes me think that with this sudden rush
Yeah.
of tattooing technology becoming more advanced and like so quickly,
Hmm.
it's freed us up as artists, particularly in the last few decades. Probably, what would you say, like the 90s, later 80s is when we start seeing like real crazy, like creative, no, I wouldn't
Mm,
say that, not say creativity, but like this is when we start seeing an explosion of people suddenly getting like enormous back pieces and like custom designs, or that's when you start seeing
mm,
more custom pieces and like
yeah, yeah. I guess
a
that
little bit where it's not just like a slightly modified like pinup hula girl,
right.
or instead of a hula girl with a pink flat with like pink lotuses, she's got like roses, and
Yeah.
instead of her hair down, she's got a bun.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about this, like thinking back to like, I mean, even like Burt Grimm era. They were doing like full body suits and like full faces and like full coverage. With I mean custom stuff. Um, I
So
don't know. I'm trying
I
to kind
wonder
of
if,
quantify like
I think then it might be fair to say that like in the 50s and 60s, when when like the like tattoo machine technology kind of just really started advancing,
hmm
and then we have more than just like old coil machines, and we've got like rotaries and other stuff that, and
yeah.
like different, we start seeing like we start seeing dedicated people coming out like making needles specifically, or this guy's
Right,
like, I'm just
right,
going to specialize in making tattoos. And I think around that time, that's when we start seeing a lot more of that kind of technological advancement.
right,
But the industry during those decades may well have still been under this whole like, wow, we're still a money grab, communal dip rag bucket here kind of operation. And then towards like Burt Grimm and all that, that's when that's where we start to see that opening up. It feels like to me in the 90s is when we would just really start seeing people going, well, I got a Phoenix with like this other stuff, and then I'm going to go in and get music notes with this, with my girlfriend's face on it.
right, right. Yeah, I think like 90s seems like it was still very the 90s, I guess like late 80s, well, I don't know, like 80s and 90s as a whole, I guess. That period was definitely very money focused. There were definitely like some standout artists that were really kind of improving their style and the
Mhm.
craft, I guess. And like you're saying, machines and technology was getting a lot more refined and sort of standardized. Um, yeah, I mean,
That's what the word I'm looking for. I think that's it. Is what, as machines and the technology kind of became standardized across the board, it
yeah,
like that's when we start seeing that like old school tattoo like shop attitude of like, well, you can only
right,
get this particular sailor tattoo if you've crossed the hemisphere, and you ain't done that, son. And we start seeing those kind of beliefs kind of go out the window, and a lot,
right,
and like
right,
tattooing becoming a lot more, even though it was still considered like, ooh, criminals get tattoos. Ooh,
right. Well, I mean,
my
to a
grandma
certain
still repeats stuff like that to
right, to a
me.
certain extent, it still is that way. Like a lot of people still have that sort of mindset, even with like physicians and surgeons, like lawyers and like
Right.
I guess business people, like really well-known influential people have lots of tattoos, very good tattoos that we know they have to have a good career to be able to pay for.
Right.
It's still like this
Like
weird,
as
um,
however anybody feels about Kat Von D, she's
yeah,
so public, and she got famous. What, we've had how many tattoo shows now? LA Ink, Florida, Miami Ink, and all those shows. Like, I
I
remember when those came out, how big those were. And I remember being like the only tattooed person that a lot of my friends knew at the time when those
really,
shows came out. Like, contacting me. I had my mom call me internationally, and I was in college at the time. She called me internationally in the
yeah,
UK to wake me up. It was like 2 in the morning to be like, so I'm watching Miami Ink.
wow,
And I'm like, okay, where is this going? And she's like, so tell me, you would never get a tattoo like where someone could see it, right?
wow.
And by that point, I
No,
think I already
sure.
had like a bunch of stuff on my arms and stuff. And I'm like, no, no. And she's like, but you also wouldn't get tattooed anywhere where you'd have to take something off for them to get to it.
Basically, so you would never get a tattoo anywhere, right?
Yeah. And then the conversation went, Mom, tell you what, if I can't cover it up with a long sleeve shirt, I won't get it. And here we are.
Right. Those things change. And I mean, like, just it seems like the overall public opinion, just from working in a shop,
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of people, like, I started in 2008. So, like, not super long ago. Um, but I mean, even within like the short amount of time that I've been tattooing, so much has changed in the public perception of tattoos. Like when I started in 2008, like in the like late 2000s, I guess, um, there was still that widespread sort of view that if you didn't get like all of the coverable stuff tattooed first, then no one would touch your neck. No one would touch your hands or face. No one would touch anything outside of those areas. Like you had to get all of the coverable stuff tattooed, and then maybe somebody would kind of extend that down past like your sleeve line.
Right. My I got kind of hit with that same thing, and so while I started piercing, probably I was like 2007, 2008, probably around the same time you started tattooing.
Yeah.
I took a pretty big hiatus from like 2012 to 2010 or 11 probably.
Yeah.
2011. What year was that? I was like 2011. I didn't start tattooing, get back into like a shop situation until 2015.
Yeah.
And that's probably when I started pursuing an apprenticeship. And even then, I still had to deal with. I think probably a year into my first apprenticeship version 1, I got my temple tattooed, and I have a little blue diamond, like just a little
Nice.
traditional diamond design, really basic.
Yeah.
That um, one of my friends did on me, who was an artist, and I did one on them.
Yeah.
And this was before I had officially started apprenticing, really. And like I think it was like the week I had landed the apprenticeship officially, and I was like, yes, I'm for realsies, not just pretending.
Right.
And so, of course, to celebrate, we're screwing around in a tattoo shop, not doing things that you're not supposed to do in tattoo shops, because that never happens in shops. We never do things that we're not supposed to. And we tattooed each other. I showed up back at the shop where I was apprenticing at the time, and I think it was Angelo and Jake, two of the older artists who were a little bit more established. Angelo was this big guy who'd been tattooing for about 15 years, and Jake was a big realism neo-trad guy who'd been going for about 10. Both of them saw the blue on my face, called me on it, and started giving me shit. Like, you can't get anything above your chin. What are you doing with that?
Right.
You need to go start scrubbing that off with, like, I don't know, it's not gonna come off. They were like, I don't know, go out, get that like face scrubby shit with the sand in it, start scrubbing it off.
Wow.
You need to fuck that shit up. Get that off your face. You do not get a face tattoo. You have not earned it.
Right. Yeah. That was definitely a huge thing, a lot bigger than it is now. But
oh yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent, personally, there are some tattoos that I won't do on just like rando walk-in clients.
Sure.
if they don't meet some certain requirements. Um, if it's somebody that seems kind of flighty, they don't quite understand, like don't grasp the reality of having a tattoo that you cannot cover, the everlasting job stopper.
Right.
Like it's better than it used to be, but you still get
But
judged
it's
for it.
still.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Oh yeah. I had to have the conversation with my parents recently
yeah,
where this is not my first face tattoo. I have what I jokingly used to tell my mom was the world's most super subtle face tattoo, is that I actually have two identical black dots on either side of my face. I've had them for 5 years,
yeah,
but you don't really see those.
right,
Not like unless you're like right up close and personal. Uh, Nobody can tell they're there. So this was like the first real big one that was like super super visible, and I had
yeah,
to explain to my mom that, like, mom, I'm touring with a rock band, I work social media, I bartend at a metal bar and part
right.
time, and I'm trying to tattoo. There's
At a metal bar at this
I'm
point,
not
that's
really
basically it's part of your uniform,
yeah, and like I had to tell her, is I'm not hurting for money, I have jobs,
right,
I'm doing fine, like this there's you have nothing to complain about here. You have nothing you can stop me for
right,
doing this. And she still, every time she sees it, does the
right. I mean, and it's a response that's entirely based in feelings. That's
yes,
it's entirely an emotional response, and it's based on like that fear that something terrible is going to happen to you, that very well could have like 20 years ago.
right. I've got a funny story though about face tattoos and job stopping. My mentor Dustin told me
Uh-oh.
this as the like, this is what tattooing on getting a tattoo on the face means. And
Mm-hmm.
like I'm telling you this as like this is you're gonna deal with shit like this.
Right.
When he had started apprenticing, he was in it was like towards the end of high school. He came from an area of Pittsburgh and from a family where he was pretty as he put it, I wasn't going to college. I wasn't nobody's first like smart kid. I like that was not for me. I was barely finishing school. And he had gone to welding school, and the Army Navy recruiter for the high school started showing up at his house being like, I
Yep.
got one. Hanging out and like not just stopping him at the high school or on his way to welding school after he dropped out and was like, I'm just going to welding school, screw this.
Right.
Um, he went to would like follow him to the bus on the way to welding school, would sometimes get on the bus, and like he was like real adamant he could get
Yep.
Dustin and his buddies. This was how Dustin got his apprenticeship. He walked in eventually to the shop where he was getting tattooed,
Yeah.
and he excuse me, sorry, I have a dry throat. He pulled out $40, which was double the shop minimum at the time. And this being like early mid 90s.
That sounds
And he
right. Yeah.
goes to I know. He goes to Aaron, the shop owner, and he goes, yeah, I want a tattoo on my face.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron's like, I'm not going to tattoo your face, buddy. You ain't got a tattoo anywhere else on you. And he's like, yeah, I do. Pulls off his shirt, and he's got like a bunch of his other little flash pieces, but he's still
Right.
very piecemeal.
Right.
And Aaron, being a very old biker, like old reputation,
Yeah.
was like, no, buddy, I'm not tattooing you, and put it up. Like kept putting up, like, no, I'm not doing it. And the guy, so Dustin started swearing to himself in Croatian, because he's Croatian. And Aaron hears this, goes, whoa, 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 Croat. Yeah, okay, I'll tattoo you.
What?
Tattoos him. Yeah. He was like, no. I know you're Croatian. Aaron was also Croatian, and he was like, oh, I can trust a fellow countryman.
I see.
So
Gotcha.
got tattooed, and he got a little dagger right here on his face.
Yeah.
And he also, this is his signature, he's got 2 crossed bones with some red under it. And he, left, came back home. Army recruiter saw him get off the bus, was about to go up to him. He rips the bandage off his face, gives the guy a big smile, and he goes, I just got it. And the Army recruiter goes, and then walks away.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess that's a good way to do that.
Up until recently, you could not have visible tattoos in the armed forces. The next week, next week when he went in to go get tattooed again by this Aaron guy, Aaron was like, "What? You want the star? No. Fuck no. We're giving you the Croatian flag somewhere. Where's it going?" So he got it on the back of his neck, and then afterwards he offered him an apprenticeship.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely well, for a while that was a good way to get out of military service.
Yep.
Oh my God, we had so many recruiters bring people in with them. It's like, we need to cover this. You need to find something to cover this. Like, you can stop with your demands here. Like, I don't work for you. But they were like, no, we need to get him in the service. It was like, that doesn't seem like my problem. Like that. Sorry, bro. But
the last shop that I worked at, Modern, because we were right up by Great Lakes Naval Base, that was their bread and butter every day, was fresh out of basic Navy kids who were like, "Oh, I'm on leave. Let's get tattooed.
Right.
All right, I've got $1,200. How long would it take to sleeve me out?
That sounds
What do
right.
you want? I don't care. Just tattoo me."
Yep, that sounds right. And it's so weird how much the tattoo regulations have changed in the different branches.
Yes.
Because I mean, within 6 months, we had somebody come in and get the top of their hand tattooed, and then they came in like a couple weeks later, and they were talking about previously in the first session, like getting some extension like down onto a finger or something like that. And they came in the next time, and I was like, "Oh, you wanted to add on to that and like run that down onto the top of your fingers and all that stuff?" She's like, "No, we can't do that. Changed again." So like they got grandfathered in that tiny little period where like hand tattoos,
in that like 1 week that it was policy.
Right. It was so ridiculous. So we could never really keep track of that.
Oh, I believe it. And coming from a similar thing, so I've talked about this on TikTok. I grew up as a State Department brat. My dad works for the U.S. Embassy. He's not real exciting. He's a translator.
Yeah.
Real
That's
boring
still
stuff.
cool.
A lot of it is. I keep forgetting that to people who haven't, because I've grown up on it. This is like, oh, it's Tuesday.
Fair enough.
Oh, it's just I have to, and like because I grew up in it, it's like, but no, it's just my mom. I have to go back to visit my folks and do laundry. I don't know. They're in Berlin. No big deal. Whatever. Ew, it's so boring. They're so lame. And I have to remember that to other people that it's not lame. It's not boring.
Right.
Whereas I'm just like, but I don't want to clean my room. My mom's gonna make me go and like clean some part of the house and pick out fabric for the couch.
Wow.
But I won't get distracted. What I always got brought up with tattoos and piercings was that it was a bad idea to get them, because if I got kidnapped in South America or there was a terrorist plot somewhere and I had to hide, I would be recognizable because I have a tattoo.
Wow.
And part of me is like, but if there's a terrorist plot where because my dad's like so far down the totem pole, like we're like the copy guy at the it's like the copy guy, the guy who is in charge of like making sure the copy machine has paper in it at the Pentagon, like at level of unimportance.
Like the intern.
Like, yeah. Or the guy who works at the Starbucks in the lobby.
Yeah, you're just like, I just sweep here.
Dude, I don't know. My favorite phrase at work is, I don't know, I just work here.
Yeah, fair.
And so like that was always the thing, is like, but Dad, what could possibly happen where me being recognizable is a problem? And it wasn't until I was much older and my dad also got a little bit hammered and was like, oh yeah, no, it was actually more in case you got kidnapped. We didn't want people to be able to recognize you like out on the street and stuff. Because, you were a teenager doing teenage things. Your mother and I had no illusions about what you guys were up to when you said you were studying at your friend's house. Bullshit.
Fair.
Bullshit. You guys were out drinking at clubs. Come on. So like that was kind of the shock to me, is that finding out, first of all, my dad is like tattoo friendly. He's now got quite a few tattoos. My mom now has a half sleeve and is plotting a back piece.
Score. You got the whole family involved.
Yes, my brother. I turned around to my brother on the phone the other week, and I was like, "Now you're the minority. You're the 25% of the family who isn't tattooed.
Peer
He's the odd
pressure.
one out." Yes, yes. I'm the only one who doesn't work for the State Department, but you're the only one that isn't cool. Like now my cousins will call me and be like, "I got tattooed. Do you think I should tell Aunt Jill?" And I'll be like, "Oh my God. I broke the barrier. So like
Right.
I kicked down the door wide open for you so that after me, everyone's gonna be like, well, you're not your cousin."
Right. Yeah. There's nobody at the gate anymore. Like you can just walk on through.
Yeah, it's the joys of being not just the firstborn child in my family, but the first of all the cousins and grandchildren. So anything I did, it's like desensitized them to the rest of it.
Right. You can now. I mean, you are the
Yeah.
trendsetter. Yeah. You
Yes.
you
And
broke the mold for everybody else's benefit.
exactly. Now they can't complain and be like, well, your Kate got one, but it was only one. And because now I can show up and I'm like,
Yeah.
hi, hi.
Right. Right. With the hand tattoos, like, well, I mean, they got a face tattoo, but at least it's not palm tattoos. Like, there's always like that one
Is
up.
it though?
So, how bad
Really?
were your palms, by the way?
Not bad at all. I
Weird.
drove home immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ah, we got another guest involved. Sweet.
yes. Soybean's probably gonna swipe my face. You wanna go, baby? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they do
She,
that.
by the way, actually, real quick, my next tattoo is going to be a matching one with her. She's got a cool little tattoo right there to
Yeah.
show that she has been spayed.
Yeah.
And that's going to be my next tattoo so that we're twinsies.
Oh, that's awesome. That's super cool.
I don't know if you're aware, when pets go to the animal shelter or humane society or the vet and they get spayed or neutered, they put a little green tattoo ink line right next to the incision.
Yeah.
So that way, if the worst happens and she ends up out on the street and picked up by animal control, they can see she's already spayed and vaccinated and all that good stuff.
Right. Yeah,
And
my dog has one of those, but yeah, it's also very apparent that he's missing some parts.
Yes. I love the idea of having a little matching neutered tattoo with my pet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because we're twinsies, we have little badass tattoos.
Nice. So, I mean, we were talking earlier about just like weird stuff that we've seen in shops. Like, I was trying to keep that in my head to get back to it. Like, what is the weirdest thing, like hands down, the weirdest thing that you've seen while working in a shop? Or hell,
So
even things that your coworkers had seen, I guess, like things that had occurred.
I've got two.
Okay.
One that I was told had happened while I wasn't there, and it was something a customer brought in.
Okay.
And one that I directly witnessed that was tattoo shop decor that once I learned what it was like, is that even legal?
Uh-oh.
So which one do you want to hear first? The fun one or the even funner one?
Oh, your pick.
Okay, we'll start with the fun one. So the fun one was a customer who came in to get a tattoo. She wanted like, I don't even know what the design was. It was irrelevant. Apparently it wasn't that memorable. This kind of overshadowed it. But she was like, I have a service animal. Is that going to be a problem? And we're like, well, no, we're happy to figure out how we can accommodate this. Is there a way that we can keep the service animal outside of a hygienic area as long as they're able to be near you enough to alert you of the issue? We'll figure it out on the day.
That's always a weird situation.
We'll figure out and we'll figure it out on the day. If we have to do it like after hours, it might just be later at night. Would you be cool with that? Or like early in the day before we open, nobody else would be in the shop, just so I could take care of you and then disinfect the shop again for everybody else.
Yeah.
And fine. Okay. And she's like, oh, there's no issue of shedding. He's in his own like closed container. And we're thinking like,
what?
You know what? Fuck it. All right, cool. Yeah, fuck it, bring the animal. Go for it.
Okay.
We're thinking you're like, oh, it's gonna be like a stuffed animal, or like it's a turtle in a little terrarium, or like a goldfish or something like that. And we're like, you know what? I bet she misunderstood ESA and emotion and service animal. That's
Right,
clearly what
right.
we're about to hear. It's gonna be just like unusual. It's gonna be like she brought a goldfish or something like that, or it's a stuffed animal. It's not gonna be real.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay, fine, cool. Day of the tattoo happens. I was unfortunately off, but I got a photo of it, of this. What was like, this woman legitimately brought her, she had an iguana. It was like 5 feet long. It was a big sucker on like a harness and leash, not like in a container or a terrarium. And she brought him in with her to get tattooed and was like, can I just hold him while I get tattooed? Like, he won't touch the floor or anything. I'm just going to hold him. He's very quiet.
So an emotional support
Like,
iguana.
yeah.
What the?
I mean, there is no such thing. There's no restrictions or on breed or anything for an ESA or size. You could technically have an emotional support elephant.
I guess.
You could have an emotional support elephant, but they're not protected the same way that a service animal is. So
right.
while you can have one in your home, you can't necessarily bring one out to eat with you, and
right.
They're not permitted in the grocery store with you.
Yeah, because I mean, like the legal requirements, like for I guess a business,
there's no
like with
there's no registration you can do for a service animal, but you just like there are accredited places. There are places that specialize in this, and they have to have been like trained to perform a specific task.
Right, and you can ask like what the task is. Yeah.
Right. It's very, very weird, and there's lots of gray areas, and as there should be. But yeah, so because nobody was really sure how to ask it, they just let her have it, and she just sat there in the chair holding this like 5-foot iguana.
That's so weird.
Chatty as can be. It was like she was holding her jacket. It may as well have been a stuffed animal, because she was just like, oh, blah blah blah, and I saw this movie last week, and just it was just that
the hell.
all I got, because I got no context for that, all I got was a photo and went, enough of the world today.
Yep. He was like, I'm done with this.
And I was like, what in the fuck is happening? Like, I just got this photo, and I'm just sitting there like, what am I looking at?
Just getting that photo, I feel like I would just instantly be just tired. I'm just like, I don't have enough anything for this right now. I'm gonna go here. Yeah.
Yep. That was no, I'm turning my phone off and putting it down. I don't need to know more.
Yep.
Like, that it was in that moment that I did ask myself, do I want to ask questions, or am I good?
Sometimes it is smarter to just know that you probably don't want to know.
I did ask and did not get a satisfying answer. Apparently it's just she brings them everywhere.
Oh, that's okay.
But the weird one that I directly witnessed, this was a piece of shop decor. This is a shop called Tribe 2 that is no longer around in the UK.
Okay.
This is one where I went in to go get tattooed, and I was visiting some buddies, and this was like on the other side of town back when I thought that was such a far distance to travel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm in your neighborhood. I'll go get tattooed over here. So very nice high-end shop, very cool. It's filled with all the like macabre, weird, and wonderful stuff, the spooky things, Ouija boards, a fake theater skull, some cobwebs, the usual.
Yeah.
It looks like a goth occultist shop has exploded in a tattoo shop.
Awesome.
I'm sitting there getting my arm worked on, and I'm just sitting, eyes are wandering. I'm looking at all the stuff on the wall, and I notice there's a little tiny bottle in one of those like glass bell display jars. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the label, and I can't really see it, but it looked like it said blood. And I'm like, what? No.
Okay.
That's got to be some sort of prop. It's going to be like dragon's blood. Woo, it's
right.
Prop. So I asked the artist about it. Right, and after the show, afterwards, I get a closer look at it, and it all I can make out is blood, but I can't tell what's in the little vial inside. Right. And I'm like, I'm really freaking curious. I mean, this is cool. I'm just like, what is this? And I go, oh, vampire blood.
What?
And I'm like, what? Oh, it's vampire blood.
Yeah, what Halloween store did you get that from?
Okay, what the fuck are we? What is this like that's not what I'm asking. Is it a prop? Is this like
Right.
actual blood? Is this like an antique thing or a weird or an art project or what's going on with this? Oh, so the owner of the shop collected antiques
Mm-hmm.
and occult stuff, and apparently this was from a vampire hunting kit or something from like the 19th century, and the blood, it was like dehydrated human blood from a vampire hunting kit, that the idea was or something, I don't know, it was either very dry or dehydrated. The point was you could mix it with water, it would like rehydrate it, and it was supposed to be like blood from the umbilical cord of a stillbirth or something like that.
What?
Yes. Oh my god! And I'm like, okay, this is like, we need to get witch talk involved in this. What could this have possibly been for?
What?
Like hexing someone. And I'm just sitting there like, first of all, you told me this was a vampire, but it's not. It's like human blood, and they're like, yeah, the idea was you could summon vampires, and this would be extra enticing to them because
Vampire bait.
it's a child. Yeah, and because it's a child's blood, and I'm like,
That's cool. Like, I just got my tattoo and saw a bottle of child's blood. It's neat.
the
Cool.
archaeologist in me is sitting in here going, is this ethical that we have a child's blood? Very feasibly a child that someone might remember. Not like have been old enough to remember, but realistically could be someone who's still alive today's grandparent that they fondly remember.
That's so weird. Like, as far as like the ethics behind that, I mean, it's not like you're gonna put that back in somebody. It exists in the world.
Well,
Like,
sure.
what are you gonna do with it? Like,
right? Like, on the one hand, it's like, okay,
put it
well,
under
anybody
a jar in a tattoo shop.
anyone who could have possibly been involved is long gone at this point.
That's so weird.
I'm sure it's so weird, and I'm sitting there, yeah, like you were saying with my freshly bandaged tattoo, like, oh,
Well, that's a thing that happened today. Like,
oh, I'm done. I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
over this.
I'm just gonna dip. Like, yeah. Like, how are you supposed to react to that? They just had it just under a jar, just chilling in the corner.
It's like up on a shelf, like with a bunch of covered in dust, with a bunch of other like random puppets, and there was like a Chinese dragon puppet in the corner, like one of those ones that they wear in the parades.
Okay, so
Like it was strange.
yeah, I mean, I think it's weird, but again, I have to remind myself that like normal is kind of a subjective construct, because I mean, like, anybody that's worked in a tattoo shop around other tattooed people or like body modification people, like, normal, like, I know a lot of people that like hang from hooks just for funsies, like have their tongue split, cut pieces of their ears off, like have people with no anesthetic carve pieces of skin out of them. Like, this is just like, oh yeah, fucking Tom does that.
Or to bring it to tattooing, there's an entire movement of people doing like big blackout, blast out black sleeves
Just for
and
pain.
like sleeving out entire limbs just for pain, specifically using small fine line needles.
Yeah, like, so
And like,
things
weird
that
is relative.
Yeah, things that appear normal for you and I are probably seriously, like, severely messed up for, I guess, a lot of other people.
Also have to remember that with antiques, especially if they don't have a big old, no, this is a real thing piece of paper next to it, there's a good chance that that's just acrylic paint.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, you never really know.
Yeah.
My dog making a bunch of noise in the background. Sorry about that.
Ah, it's fine. It's fine.
You choose the best times to get itchy.
Totally great. In fact, he should come up and do some Spitfire questions with guests now.
Yes, absolutely.
Just aggressively and very like barking at people and hoping for answers, and love it. Yeah, it's, and I think that's also like something that we kind of get new, like immune to, especially working in tattoo shops. There's so much
Right.
overlap between tattoo shops where, like, I've worked with one of my mentors. The first shop they worked at actually was the back room of an occultist shop, so there was
Yeah.
weird stuff like that on the walls. In fact, they had like animal bones all over the place and like
Hmm.
stuff like that. Where the neighborhood was a weird area. So like when I worked at in the little village shop, if I went over there to their south side location, there was a brujeria shop 2 doors down.
No way. That's cool.
And yeah, and like, but it wasn't something that like it was advertised. It was one of those things that that Charlie, the owner, was like, no, like, because you know Spanish and you know about the arts, like, it's a brujeria shop if you need supplies. And I'm like, I think you have to be in the wrong. Do I look like I'm that demographic, son? I don't think I'm the right flavor of people.
Yeah, because I mean, like all that stuff. I don't know if that's like closed practice stuff. I don't know if you can just like walk
I
into a shop. It's like, hey, so I need some stuff without
I
like
think a
knowing
lot of it,
somebody.
from what I understand, and admittedly my knowledge is very, very limited. It's heavily based on indigenous practices
Yeah,
as well as regional regional ethnic beliefs and cultural beliefs. So it's
gotcha.
I'm under the impression that brujeria is something that is at least semi-closed, or if you don't at least have some sort of flavor of Latinx or indigenous in you, it's something that it's not that's not your culture. Don't mess with someone else's culture, you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Plus, it's like a cult. Like you don't met. Even if I don't necessarily believe in it, I'm not gonna light the black flame candle
Right, not
on
gonna
Halloween.
disrespect it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I get that. I mean, even relating that sort of attitude to tattoos, like with specific tattoo styles, like I really leaned heavily away from doing any sort of like Polynesian tattoo styles or anything like that. Even when
Right.
people like ask are very adamant that's what they want, um, just because it doesn't quite feel right to to sort of make marks that are very important, like the style of tattooing is very important to the culture of that region. Like it feels almost kind of like disrespectful not having like
Right.
that immersion in that culture, really knowing what any of that stuff means, because I mean it actually has like a story, a history, a meaning behind all of those marks. I don't have that sort of experience, so I feel really kind of wrong trying to tattoo that stuff on most people.
That's similarly, I've done as part of my industrial goth sort of look for over a decade. I have done big like cyber goth lines down my
Hmm.
chin. And that's something that I always told myself, like I'm eventually going to get that tattooed. I draw that on every time I do makeup. And especially over probably the past decade, and coming to realize exactly um culturally, obviously I'm not Maori and I don't know the experience firsthand, but even reading about it and reading about the sacred tattoos in that part of the world, and like
Hmm.
realizing now I'm at an age and I'm at a place right now on social media and in public where I am very, very visible and of
Hmm.
course very, very mayonnaise. And it is not, I have a sort of responsibility that because of this platform and because of this visibility, that to act like I know better,
Yeah.
you know? And that like even this was something someone brought up, as everybody remembers I used to have the green wool braids in my hair, and that's something that's part of my traditional dress. But had a very long conversation with a friend who made me realize that because I have this big platform, because I have this big visibility, 99% of the population don't know where the hell I'm talking about if I say Libiesho.
Gotcha.
99.9% of people on the internet, if I say, well, this is my Libia without the setups, they're going to be like, where the fuck is Libya? what is Livonia? Like nobody knows who the fuck that is. They're going to see is a white person who has something that looks like dreads in.
Yeah.
And yeah. So it it doesn't matter that I'm trying to do a chin tattoo differently, or that I'm trying to do like something that's very clearly digital versus something,
Hmm.
because of who I am and the people I surround myself with. It it and because of the history of that style of tattooing, and
Hmm.
like that, what a lot of indigenous people and Aboriginal and Maori and other indigenous peoples in Australia and New Zealand had to go through.
Hmm.
It's
I think similar ones in
it's
Alaska
not
as well.
something. Yeah, and thank you for reminding me. Yes, all in any indigenous person who has that in their cultural traditions, like it's not my place to take that from them and draw the spotlight away from them celebrating their heritage in any way. It's not,
I can see
and
that.
that
Yeah.
doing so, I feel like especially now that I have these major platforms like on TikTok, which I never expected to have any kind of following like this. It's something that I think about every day, is that like what message am I sending out to the people on this app if I do this, if I dress this way, if I wear this? If
Right.
I say
Right.
this is okay, who's going to copy me?
Yeah, and it's definitely, it seems like a very weird thing to have to consider.
Mhm.
Like that you're going to be sort of gone over with a fine tooth comb by this large swath of the population. Um, yeah, it's definitely
Absolutely.
a very weird thought that you're going to be that visible all the time.
And the other side of that is that no matter how hard I try, and I get very anxious, like it's in some ways about that whole thought process, is that like
Yeah.
it makes me very anxious, and no matter how hard I try to like make sure everything's okay and that there's nothing that could possibly be problematic in any way, there's always going to be something or someone who's like this specific thing.
At a certain point, there is there's got to be a line of reasonableness. Um,
Right.
because I mean, something everything that you could possibly do is going to offend someone somehow. Um, like you cannot not offend everyone. You can't make
Right.
absolutely every person in the world that ever sees you happy. Like it's just not possible.
Right.
So I mean, there
My
has to
rule of
be.
thumb with that. Oh, sorry,
No,
please
go ahead.
continue.
Go ahead.
I was going to say my rule of thumb with it is usually like, is that something that I would have known to look for or think of if it had not been pointed out to me?
Right. I can see that.
And like, if it's like, no, I had no idea that your grandmother, this person I have never met, and you, who I've had died last week, person I've never met, and that I didn't know, and thus I had no idea that mentioning grandmothers would be a potentially triggering subject. And I'm so sorry. Let's talk about something else. Like
Right.
that, something like that, I will feel less bad about than like if I had like something offensive written on me and I got on video and someone was like, "Hey, you forgot to wipe off the B word on your forehead." Oh,
Right.
I shouldn't have.
There's a definite difference between like, oh, I'm gonna kick this kitten. That's obviously a bad thing to do. That's going to offend people. It's
Right.
wrong. And like, I'm eating a ham sandwich and someone gets offended about a ham sandwich because they don't like ham sandwiches. Like, there's got to be a line of
Right.
reasonableness somewhere between those two things, because the world is just, it's a huge spectrum of things. Like
Right.
yeah, like you can't like stop doing like normal things just because um somebody might get offended over something ridiculous.
And I think that's bringing that back to tattooing. I think that's an interesting line that a lot of tattoo artists kind of dance on, and that, and in a lot of ways I think a lot of tattoos, whether we intend to or not, are kind of a social commentary on like major beliefs and like attitudes going through our communities at the time,
Totally, totally.
um like well, like back in the 90s, what it was, sorry, I'm thinking back to like the early days of my apprenticeship, and was one of the artists that I worked under was trying to explain to me the difference in recognizing like different kind of styles of tattooing, and they were
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh yeah, 90s, you can tell a 90s piece immediately by the way that they do that like blue and brown chromed out highlights."
I feel attacked.
Like, you know exactly what I'm talking about, though.
I
So
do. It's
immediately, it's
desert
very
chrome.
recognizable.
Desert
I love
chrome.
it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Um, I still do highlights like that. I still do
Yeah.
metal highlights like that. If
Mhm.
I'm not reaching for some variation of blue and brown and white, there's something wrong with me, and you need to send
And
help.
then there's the one that's all in in like the reddish spectrum. It's like the Mars chrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god. Gotta go look all these up now. I'm gonna
Oh
go
my
look up.
god.
You're gonna send me down this like '90s tattoo rabbit hole, and then I'm gonna be texting you pictures of like rat fink stuff and Calivera at like
Oh,
2 in the morning.
awesome. I mean, like, I have some kind of custom culture stuff going on here. I like
It
airbrushed for
is.
years. I pinstriped. I did hand lettering for a
Is it
long time.
here? Do I have it here? So I have a book that I will have to send to you then, and
Yeah.
I think you will appreciate it more than I do. And I love that thing. It is the definitive history of rat fink.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's everything from his inception all the way through all the different artists that have portrayed Ratfink and showed him, like, drawn him in various stages and how they got involved in the process, their
Yeah.
art, and oh, it's so cool. And they show like all the movie posters with the like horror gore,
Yeah.
pinup, like demon pinups and horror pinups and stuff like that.
It is.
That's my thing.
It's so intense. What you have to go through to legally be able to make Ratfink art now. Like
Really?
you have to be like approved on a list by his what's the word I'm looking for here, his estate.
Estate. Oh yeah, because like they're trying to preserve the rat fink.
Yeah, they
See,
will.
I
If you
kind of
make one
respect that, but at the
unauthorized,
same time, fuck that. Ugh. I understand and I respect that, but at the same time, I'm also like, fuck that. That's stifling the growth of rat fink just because the guy who originally came up with it is dead. Come on, how are we going to evolve here?
now I will say I actually got a cease and desist from Von Dutch at one point because I made a piece of artwork with an eyeball that had wings. Wasn't anywhere close to anything that he did back in the day. Wasn't like anything close to what's associated with the brand now. It was just an eyeball with wings, like everybody.
I now just want. Well, there's the merch shirt that I'm going to drop now on Halloween. Is Von Dutch sucks.
I mean, like up to that
We'll
point,
see how long that lasts.
yeah, I had no issue with them at all. But yeah, they sent me like a really kind of shitty cease and desist over like this one-off
Hey,
little painting that I did and sold on Etsy, I think, like way back in the day. And I was just like, this has like no stylistic elements that are even close to that. Like there's no outline. There's
the
nothing. Like
only
it's
thing is that it's a winged eyeball. Which,
right.
oh, are they gonna sue Wizards of the Coast too? Are they gonna sue fucking Dungeons and Dragons and Gary
Right.
Gygax and his estate because that's literally a demon in Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, and this is like I just happened to have access to a specific copyright lawyer at the time, and he sent him back this crazy letter. Is just like, well, this has been used forever and ever. So basically, and yeah, like
So you went
they
with
left it
the
alone
Samsung
super quick.
defense.
What's that?
You went with the Samsung defense. When Apple tried to file a copyright in California about against and sued Samsung in the EU about the shape of their tablet, saying that they had stolen the design of the iPad.
Seriously?
Samsung's defense, yes,
Oh my
yes.
god!
Samsung's defense was literally to show up with a photocopy of a square.
Right. It's like I
They
also
just
have
showed
this.
up with 3 different.
I have a
They showed,
notebook filled
like, I
with
think the other
pages
one.
that are the same shape.
They also had a screenshot from Star Trek: The Next Generation where Picard is holding like something that looks a lot like an iPad. And,
Yes.
like that was like it. They showed up with a bunch of pictures of like from pop culture media of people holding tablets that looked like iPads from 20 years before iPad, and then a couple of squares in a rectangle.
Right.
And
Like how do you
of course,
copyright a
tossed that.
shape?
Of course, that lawsuit got tossed out, but I like that you used the Samsung defense of fuck off. This is a thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, how are you going to try to copyright just the basic idea of a combination of an eyeball with wings? Like, isn't some variation of like that very thing like in the Bible? As one of the angels, it's like wings, a big ball of like wings and eyeballs.
I think that's the Metatron.
Is it
the voice of God?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's or
but
like that's how that angels are portrayed in the Bible, is just like a shitload of fucking wings around a burning eyeball.
Yeah, it's something
which
like
would
that.
make a sick tattoo, by the way.
Absolutely. Maybe I'll have to work on that. But
okay. I just thought of a really fun one that would probably also, I don't know, actually no, it's enough legal distinction and modification that it would be fine under, it should be okay under Creative Commons.
Yeah.
If you did that using the Von Dutch iPhone.
Oh my god. Yeah, because I mean,
just the wings, and then send it to them, going, "Hey, I improved your design."
Yeah, I don't think I have that kind of petty in me. I just don't care enough. But yeah, like I was under the impression that if like a certain amount of stuff was changed, or if it was used in a way to sort of like make fun of it, that it was totally okay. It was a new and distinct work. And yeah, mine had nothing to do with that. Like it was almost sort of realistic. It was kind of like a fine art-y looking painting, if that makes sense at all. It didn't look.
Is that the black and white
culture.
eyeball that you have up on Instagram?
I did a lot of them there for a while, but it was like sort of that style.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. God, do you think Disney sends out a cease and desist for every Disney tattoo that gets tattooed?
I'm pretty sure Disney had their ass handed to them once over a tattoo with that. I'm pretty sure there was a big case about tattoos specifically where the judge just like told them to kick rocks. That like
I hope so.
It was like the artist's interpretation of the character and not their copyrighted work. Like, that would be super weird to say like, oh well, I own that person's skin.
Yeah, what are they gonna do? Like, when you're dead, we're gonna collect it.
Yeah, we're gonna repossess this so no one can see it on your corpse.
And then we'll re-release it every 10 years on the dot from the Disney archives.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's a thing. Jesus. But yeah, it was just such a ridiculous sort of copyright squabble. Like, I understand wanting to protect your intellectual property.
Right.
But Walt Disney's been dead for a long time. I mean, well, maybe other than like his frozen head in a bunker somewhere, but.
Right, which they swear is not a thing, and they swear he was cremated.
Right. Sure. There we go. Back to conspiracy theories.
Yes. I was going to actually ask, like, at what point you, as an artist who is currently working as a tattoo artist, and because you also have this very public platform, I'm sure this is something that you think about or have to deal with, is when every time you post a design, you run the risk of someone else potentially ripping it off completely and trying to gain credit of that. Like, but there is a certain amount of value, especially to new artists trying to get into the tattoo industry, of tracing. Tracing does have its place, and I don't want to disparage any artist that traces, because it's a very valuable tool.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've used it. You use it all the time in the tattoo industry. It's something we deal with all the time. At what point would you say, is there a point where, like, someone going out, seeing a design that you've done on someone and being like, oh, I like that tattoo, goes to their artist, gets it done? Of course, there's always going to be minor differences, because every artist, even tattooing the same design off the same stencil, are going to have their own personal artistic differences.
Right.
Do you believe there is? And if so, where would this line be? Where do you put this line of, is this a copied design or an inspired design?
That's really that's really difficult to sort of define. I've thought about that before. Like, obviously, my just blanket answer is going to be if you are tracing something that someone else has done, uh, and it's not, and the only differences that appear are the ones that would naturally appear because it came from your hand and not the original artist,
Right.
uh, then if you're selling it or claiming that it's yours, I'm not with that at all. That feels wrong to me. Um, but as far as a work that is inspired by it, like if I see a skull with a rose that I really like, and I go find a different, like a totally different skull and a different rose and arrange them in roughly the same way, I feel that in most cases is kind of its own piece. Um,
Sure.
it may use like a similar composition, but it's an entirely different skull, entirely different rose. Just the idea is the same. Whereas if I were to
Sure.
just like trace it and like maybe put like an outline around it, like a thicker outline, or like do it a different color or something like that. But the overall, um, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like the footprint of the image is basically the same as the one that you're using as reference. It feels kind of fudgy.
Hmm.
But of course, there's a lot of gray area in there. There's so much gray
Right.
area.
I'd say there's also so many factors that go into this, like even the size of the piece. Like, I, part of me is like it's a lot harder to plagiarize someone's full back piece than it would be to say plagiarize like a little 3 by 3 inch
Yeah, tiny little
piece
banger.
that's going on. Yeah, even if that banger was a custom piece that you drew on the spot, like it's still a little, it's still a smaller piece. Like one that sticks in my head that's been has sparked significant debate amongst my friends lately has been this one that I saw on TikTok where the guy got like 3/4 million views on this. It was a snake wrapped around a collarbone.
Oh, I saw part of that. Yeah.
You saw part, yeah. So you've seen the same video where that got us talking. Is like, of course, googling snake collarbone, you find probably 1,000 different tattoos that are all minutely different from each other
Yeah.
and all in the same placement, all with that same like wrapped around the bone design, and like
Yeah.
whether or not the like I fell on team the original artist must be so upset seeing how big this got blown
The
up.
original
Now
client
everybody's
must
getting,
be so upset
sure.
because they were. I'm sure they were thinking to
Yeah.
themselves, "Oh, cool! Like I've got this thing that no one else has, and now a
Right.
thousand people have variations of the same thing." And with that, it's not even so much like what the style of the image is. It's a very original concept of
Yeah.
application to the body. Yeah, I can
Right.
totally get that.
Or on a similar note, the first guy who ever got like the blackout forest forearm piece coming up from the wrist, I'm sure
Right,
thought he was like the coolest dude on the planet, all until 30 seconds later his buddy came out and went, "It looks so good, I got the same thing."
right. And see, as someone working in a shop that gets brought a lot of design ideas, if someone brings me like a super original thing, like someone that has a very unique idea or a very unique style, um I'm less likely to do anything that's like super close to that.
Right.
Like if somebody brings me something by like David Coate or something that has like like
Sure.
a very specific style to it, and they're like, yeah, I want this piece, or I want something like done in this style. I'm like, no, that is not my style. That is very definitely identifiable as this one specific person.
Right.
That's not me. If you want something like that, you should go to that person.
Right. That's something that also sparked the debate between us all as well, which was like taking art from non-tattoo tattooist artists and
Yeah.
bringing them to your artist and saying, I would like this directly copied onto my body.
Yeah.
Be it a famous artist like Van Gogh, or I don't know, what's a famous etching artist? Like a very,
Durer. But of
any,
course, Durer's
yeah,
dead.
that's Albrecht Dürer, or like being like, I want this Albrecht Dürer, or yeah, and like I want this on me directly, or someone who's not dead. I would like this Remedios. Well, no, she's dead too.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, versus like that's one that I struggle with as well, because I also spent many years when I was trying to get an apprenticeship making a living off of selling Flash.
Yeah.
And that was my practice for getting good at these traditional designs, was making Flash sheets.
Right.
Even if it was like a really bare bones, like here's a traditional rose, here's a little anchor.
Right.
It's all in that same like old school style there. I would still like it, $5 a sheet. Lots of shops will take that.
Yeah.
Throw that on the wall. Someone will see it walking in. And like thinking about how many people may have walked in over the years and just like, because I've never been able to put my name on a card as Echo Voxx artist, tattoo artist. I've always been the Apprentice. I've always been the piercer, or like the desk person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, on that note, I'm a non-tattooist artist who has very probably had some of my work tattooed on people.
Mm-hmm.
And like how, obviously not to the same extent as a lot of major artists here on Instagram and social media who have millions of followers, but to a lesser extent.
Right.
And like where the line there is sure, Flash sheet, easy answer. I sold it, I painted it to put up in a shop so someone would get it.
Right.
Obviously,
it's just
not
understood.
mad, but like
understood when you sell a sheet of Flash, you sell the usage rights for that Flash to be able to reproduce it. Kind of like, I mean, there are a bunch of like big name artists that design posters and T-shirts and that sort of thing, and never have their name attached to it. Like, they're working with other brands. They're saying like, well, I will sell you this design, and for this amount of money, you get the design and the legal rights to be able to reproduce this ad nauseum to make yourself money. And I am not attached to it. This is just a one-time fee. But
it's also the artist is sort of protected, that they can't turn around and be like, with this exclusive design by Joe Smith. But like at the same time, for artists like that as well, I'm sure it's a similar kind of art theft, and it's especially in tattooing. It's a very frustrating thing to see in that industry. Mostly, part of me wonders, because so much of the industry is still held as a mystery to people outside of the industry. If you're not in tattooing, you don't know how it works. You don't know what goes on. You don't know what it takes to set up a tattoo, to make Flash art, to do all that stuff. And it feels like, and I feel like that also kind of contributes to a certain amount of this attitude of elitism that sometimes people see in artists when they or tattoo people when they come in as outsiders, and they're like, oh, but you guys are but you're all heavily tattooed and you know stuff and you're secretive together, and what is your secrets?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean.
At least in my experiences coming in from the outside.
Yeah. I mean, the way that I see it, it's on a lot of this stuff as far as like standard best practices and like where the ethics lie on certain things. It's kind of my job to educate people on that when they come in.
Sure.
As far as like perceived elitism, yeah, I've experienced some of that walking into shops before, or like talking to some other artists. I think a lot of it is did you lose your lights there?
Yeah, baby tried to jump over the table and missed.
That makes sense. But
she was very proud of herself.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they always are.
Oh, we'll get you here in a second. All right, I can still hear you.
Yeah, so with oh man, I kind of lost it there. What were we talking about? Oh, there we go.
perceived elitism in the tattoo
Oh yeah, yeah,
industry
yeah, yeah.
from outside coming into it.
So perceived elitism, because I mean we see this stuff every single day, and we've likely
Sure.
experienced what the customer, like the random customer walking in, may have never experienced before. Like this is a totally unique experience for them. We've been through 10,000 times. So we
Hmm.
can be kind of jaded to it. It's really, really easy to fall into that. Oh God, this question again. No, no, it's this way, not this way. And come
Right.
across as kind of shitty about it. And personally, I just kind of feel like I have to keep reminding myself this is my 10,000th time of hearing this question, but this is their first of hearing an answer to it. Um,
Sure.
so I have to kind of keep myself in that mindset, uh, and kind of mindful of their experience in that interaction as well. But it's when you, I mean, understandably, when you hear the same questions over and over and over again, it is so easy to fall into this attitude of, oh my God, not again. It just
Sure.
gets really old, really repetitive.
I found that was really hard, especially when I was first trying to get Apprentice, and I don't know how much of this was obviously because I'm very feminine presenting, um, and how much of it was just like, who the hell is this person? Get the hell out of my shop! What are you doing here?
Right.
And because like especially when even at shops where I was the apprentice, I felt like there was so much pushback from certain artists, not all the artists that I've worked under.
Hmm.
But particularly like the first shop I worked at, we had four artists. My partner at the time, who was at least on paper, like, I'm not actually your mentor or anything like that. You're the shop apprentice. I can't protect you, kind of
Hmm.
thing. I can't shelter you really. And then there was Eric, my buddy Eric, who I'm still friends with, and he still tattoos with Dustin over at Tattoo Tattoo. And then there were two other guys who were a little older, a little more, had been tattooing a lot longer than either of the two younger guys had,
Hmm.
and were very. When I say they were a certain, they were that older flavor of older artist. There was that particular flavor of older artists where you keep your techniques close to the chest. Unless
Right.
you're my direct apprentice, you don't know that. You don't know all my trade secrets, kind of
Right.
thing. And even asking technical questions like, well, how long should I put this in the autoclave for? Well, what should I set? How do I work the autoclave?
Yeah.
Even I think that was my ones I noticed. It was
He's
like,
like,
how
go
do I
ask your
even what
mentor.
is this thing? Yeah, and when I had to be like, well, buddy, that would be you right now.
It's a different type of shop setup. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, back in the day, like you learned from one person. One person taught you in most cases, and it seems to me like it's this slow progression towards being not just open in general as far as information within a shop, like to new apprentices, uh, but uh, but just kind of like a communal teaching style, I guess.
Right.
Uh,
But see that I don't that I want makes me wonder because like every shop I've worked at and what I got told to look for a good apprenticeship was that it's the owner offering it to you, and the owner is one of the artists, or at
mhm,
least has been an artist
yeah.
in their lifetime. And that that you're the shop apprentice, not but under the owner, not a specific artist, because that artist can get fired, get booted, and then
Yeah, and
you're screwed.
technically they're a contractor, so I mean they're being contracted to make art, not necessarily take the time out of their day to teach someone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um, which actually that's why it took me three false starts on an apprenticeship, is I was the shop apprentice at the first one, but when my then significant other uh, stood up to an owner and one of the artists for being terrible to me,
Yeah.
got politely told, I don't think this is the right environment for you. And we were both out the door.
Gotcha.
So Yeah, that was at least the first one. The second one was that we didn't have the shop went under, unfortunately, and that was neither of our faults,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
that
was very unfortunate.
sucks, but it
It
happens.
happens.
Yeah.
It really does. And then yeah, and then the third time was a whole it was a whole mess. I'm still not even sure what quite happened because
Yeah.
then COVID hit and it was like, well,
Yeah, COVID
yeah.
that's been a thing for basically everybody that's tattooing, piercing, whatever. Like it's
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even if it didn't like significantly disrupt some people's finances, like it totally changed what we can expect from the general public. Well, because like normally, as far as like slow times of the year, you can kind of expect in a particular area. You kind of have an idea after a while. Like this month is going to be kind of slow. Like these 2 weeks in this month are going to be kind of slow. This week everybody's going back to school, so that's going to be kind of slow. And like, and these times you can kind of roughly be able to plan most of the time on like what you're going to see walking through the door. Um, and with this, everything is thrown into disarray. Like there's really no way to
It's
expect.
crazy.
Like you don't know what to expect, so you're just everybody's in kind of like emergency mode.
Right.
Yeah,
Everything is a like right now it feels like at least it feels like we're too freshly back into being opened up again
right.
for us to really have any sort of established pattern to go
Yeah,
off of or idea of what we need to be looking for right now. And I think the way that the industry has been changing has just so thoroughly changed with COVID. As you said earlier, this kind of painted for us how glaringly obviously fragile this industry is.
yeah,
And I think this forced a lot of much needed change
yeah,
in the industry. Like I think I think this is going to prove to be both a good and a bad thing, but more of a good thing is that the number of older artists I have seen retiring who were just like, you know what? This was kind of the final straw, the kicker that showed me I'm too old to be doing this. I'm going to
right,
be out of work anyway, so I'm 65, may as well.
right.
And doing that, I think that's removed. There's a lot of people doing that. And I think that's removed some of the like older attitudes that are no longer quite as welcome in the industry, while also removing. It's also unfortunately removed a lot of experience
Yeah,
and a lot of knowledge that may or may not have been preserved because we're very
insular.
organized people all the time. I was gonna say organized, and that
Oh,
like we
fair.
remember to do we're always tattooers are always very organized
Oh yeah, none of
at
us
all
have
times forever.
ADHD, severe
None of us,
ADHD at
not
all, ever.
we weren't. There's no reason we were attracted to this alternative industry
No, not
for its
no reason at all.
flexibility. No reason, no reason.
Yeah,
But I think that's going to have the benefit is we're going to see a lot more newer artists starting to take over or not take over, but like become like a lot of these newer attitudes and younger artists
become a
are going
stronger
to,
voice.
yeah, they're going to start defining a lot of the industry attitudes, which I
Yeah,
think is going to be great. But there's all like the anthropologist in me and the archaeologist is also still kind of like, but we're also losing where we
right.
came
That
from.
sadness of possibly losing that tradition and those roots. But I mean, some things, like you mentioned something earlier about like old school attitudes, and part of it, like sharing information. Uh, the difference
Yes.
between the tail end of all this sort of major attitude. It was trailing off when I first started tattooing in 2008. But we still had a lot of people around us active in our shops that were still in that mindset because they grew up in it. But like it's the reason that I didn't do a convention for the first like 7 or 8 years that I was tattooing. That I didn't,
Really?
yeah, that I didn't do any guest spots for the first like 7 or 8 years that I was tattooing. Like nothing. We were totally discouraged from talking to any other shops that we didn't know like personally. We didn't have like individual friends
A
in.
relationship, right?
Yeah, like don't talk to other shops. They're just out to steal your secrets. Don't talk to other artists. Like they're just gonna cut your throat and like steal your flash art and like screw you over. And it was this like really prevalent idea back in the day. Like you just don't associate with other tattooers, otherwise they'll like try to like bomb your shop and fucking burn your stuff down and try to shoot you and like all this crazy stuff that
Which, to a certain extent, I've heard some horror stories about
yeah,
the bad old days in like the 70s and 60s, and
right. Like that
shops
attitude came
mysteriously
from
getting
somewhere.
set on fire and stuff, be it to discourage competition from coming into your area.
Right.
Like,
I mean it's
one of my last mentors actually had a horrible story about having to stand watch which he later learned, he had learned many years after the fact, that what he was standing watch for was to make sure that the cops didn't spot the owner of the shop where he was apprenticing, because this was his apprentice hazing, threw bricks through the windows of a new shop that had opened up down the street, and tossed you know bottles of like Molotov cocktails and shit through the windows,
yeah.
trying to scare the guy out of leaving
Right.
because he didn't want this other shop opening up. So like
Yeah, there was that whole like territory idea. Like you don't come into my territory, otherwise. Yeah. And so like
it's like
so that insular attitude, it's based in reality. Well,
yeah.
a reality that did exist but no longer does for the most part. So it's
Right.
outdated. It's an outdated mindset, and it is not productive to where tattooing is going.
And I think to a certain extent, a lot of older artists, and it makes me wonder how much of that kind of image was like encouraged back in older days and earlier days of American tattooing tradition. Um, like it, how much of that attitude was encouraged, at least with the general populace? Like, yeah, we want you thinking we're badasses and like scary people, and you don't mess with us, and it's kind of like a badge of honor, like, you don't mess with us, we're bad people, we're cool, we're edgy.
I mean, certain people did, like you were talking about, certain people are attracted to that sort of counterculture lifestyle, that existence on the fringe while still being able to survive with some expectation of consistency, I guess.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that were attracted to tattooing, the ability, just like as a hustle, the ability to make money, set your own schedule, not have to answer to some like corporate dude in a suit calling you an asshole all the time. Like a certain type of people were attracted to that. Like when you talk about like the group of tattooers that came in like late 70s 80s, referred to as like the black shirts, like the first generation of tattooers that were like legit like bikers, for the most part. Like they brought a lot of those sort of attitudes, that like the territory thing, in from the whole biker community into tattooing.
Oh my god. And I know there's such a heavy overlap. You meet some crazy people in this industry, and some very interesting ones, and some very both.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was like Pop's whole thing, is that he was a biker. He ran around with a bunch of bike gangs. They toured the country doing tattoos out of a trailer, him and Kathy. And they also had a sideline selling prize-winning cattle semen, which he has like a whole. I'm not kidding. This was like, she told us she was retiring, and she was telling me all about it in the same breath that she would be like, and because ladies can't tattoo.
Oh my god.
But you'll be great. And I'm like,
yeah, so
okay,
that particular attitude survived well into the middle of my stint at the first shop I was at. I mean, I was there for 10 years. And yeah, we would have people come in all the time and see our buddy Lindsay, who was tattooing there, and she had the station that was closest to the front counter. And people would come in and just kind of assume that she was like the counter girl. And so they're like, yeah, I want to get this skull, I want to get this tattooed on my chest, and like all these like hardcore, like traditionally manly tattoo ideas. And she's like, cool, that's cool, let's get set up. And you're like, no, I I want a tattoo artist to do it. Yeah, man, I
Yeah.
am a tattoo artist. They're like, oh no, ladies can't tattoo skulls. Y'all can only do flowers.
Oh, see, I got the women can't tattoo at all.
Really?
My even as recently as last year, I had someone tell me this straight to my
What?
face, and I had to be.
I
And
don't
this was
understand.
as I was showing them like photos of me holding machines and like from my apprentice. I was telling them like,
That's
oh yeah,
so
I used to
weird.
apprentice a million years ago. Right, and they're like, wow, no wonder you didn't finish. Ladies can't tattoo, and I'm like,
There's so many good
I want
female
to
artists though. Like so many.
Yeah,
Like even I mean
there.
not even modern. Like fucking back in the day, like the like 30s, 40s, 50s, there were well-known
Yes,
female tattooers.
exactly, and in fact, I was telling you about one of my tactics as when I was trying to get apprenticed was getting my portfolio reviewed. One of the first places I went to get my portfolio reviewed was a place called here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Little tiny mom and pop shop. It's no more than like 3 stations. It's the hole in the wall.
Yeah.
It's had some good artists over the years. This guy who I went into, and I will absolutely name him because he screwed me over. That jerk.
Yeah, that's not good.
He was mean to me. No, he was mean. He took a look at my portfolio, and this was like a more advanced stage of my portfolio. I'd started doing like traditional girl heads and throwing in like some froofier, more neo-traditional stuff in there.
Yeah.
Like I could draw like a traditional rose with my eyes closed with a Sharpie at that point. And, I'd walk in, I had all the nice watercolors, and I'd upgraded to like I had a big portfolio book, and I showed him, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm just looking for a review. I'm not looking for an apprenticeship or anything. Turns out he had just been, and I hadn't realized this at the time, he was an artist who just before I started hanging out at that shop had just been fired from there for shady behavior.
That's not
among
good.
other things. Among other things.
Mm-hmm.
And he was still a little jaded about it. So when he saw the like stamps and stickers that I had from the shop on there, he started getting very cruel and was picking apart everything like, oh, this rose, ugh, this is terrible. My toddler can draw a better rose than this. This jaguar, why are you even trying? And like going through and just like, this is awful. I would make you redraw that. Your lines are all wonky. The colors aren't even. What's going on here? And like not even looking at anything because he wasn't even looking at the pieces of paper.
Yeah.
He was talking about roses on a flash sheet full of goldfish at one point. And I'm like, you're just being a dick now.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I got some of that myself. But...
Sure.
Yeah,
and
it feels like shit. It's super discouraging.
It does. It is. There are several artists that I used to look up to that I can't bring myself to even look at their current work because I got really, really negative, cruel reviews from them.
Yeah.
And like not just a helpful review, but a cruel one. I had one of the female artists that I looked up to more than anyone in Chicago tell me, yeah, I wouldn't hire you, and we don't need any more girl tattooers anyway. You're in a saturated market, honey. I don't want your competition.
Weird.
And like didn't even look at my portfolio and just kind of dismissed me and then walked away, and I was left standing there like,
yeah, I feel like that's kind of been the tattoo industry that I have known of since I've been alive, I guess forever. Because I started looking for apprenticeships. I want to say like maybe 6 years or something like that before I actually got a bite on one. I would consistently go into tattoo shops all the time with portfolios, with sketchbooks and all this stuff, even trying to sell like flash sheets and all that. And yeah, some of them were just super, super shitty, like since forever.
yeah.
And eventually one of them just kind of by happenstance needed an apprentice. Like their apprentice was just about to graduate, and they had an extra station that they wanted to fill. So I mean, there's no telling, like if I hadn't just stumbled into that, there's no telling I probably would have been dealing with the same like, yeah, we don't fucking need anybody, get the hell out of here, for forever. So
Yeah, and I did eventually stumble into something, but at the same time, it was also incredibly like seeing that, especially from seeing that kind of negativity, especially from another. Obviously, I'm non-binary now,
Yeah.
and at the time I did not identify so. But so at the time, seeing this kind of attitude from another female artist or from another woman,
Yeah.
and being like I guess under some naive assumption I had thought, oh, women won't be a dick to me. A woman will understand
They're people
this.
too.
That
We're unjust.
we're the minority in this industry, and it'll be camaraderie, it'll be like encouragement. No, it never
Mm,
occurred to me that someone might be petty or horrible or insecure about their own abilities and try to dismiss me right out the gate. And so like hearing that response that day just absolutely crushed me, and it was
yeah.
a very long time before I felt comfortable showing anyone any of my flash work again,
Yeah.
which it
I think I
it,
feel
it was
like
really.
one of the attitudes is that that a lot of shops are looking for resiliency in people, and maybe they don't go about it the best way finding that in some people sometimes. But the way that I've sort of kind of sussed out from some people, the way they talk about it is that like you see a lot of really messed up stuff. You deal with a lot of really screwed up stuff as a tattooer, and some level of that is, I guess, whether somebody in a shop knows it or not. I think some of that's
Mhm.
just kind of like trying to weed out people that might not be able to handle that.
Sure.
I mean,
And
that's
I
not saying
get that
I'm agreeing with it.
I get there's a certain amount of that, and that's why like on the one hand, like I understand where the sort of hazing the apprentice comes from. I don't agree with it because I think that you
Yeah,
can teach people how to deal with that cut with bad customers, unreasonable people, unruly behavior,
yeah.
over the top demands like that,
And
and
of course, shop
like
policies, standard shop
yes,
policies have changed a whole lot since then too. So that, I mean,
right.
that can weed out a ton of that, so that you don't have to be prepared to tell somebody to like go die and get the fuck out like all the time.
Right. Like one of what my buddy Norm, who had started apprenticing just before I did, I loved it because this was a shop. We had 3 apprentices, and we had all started around the same time. So we were all kind of like, yeah, we're in this together, buddy system.
Right.
Haha. Um, he kind of got hazed a little more than I did. His part of his like apprentice duties was when his mentor Corey was out with his girlfriend. He had to be there. He was their designated driver for the night, but they were like nice about it in that they would give him like 24 hours notice. Like, hey, Thursday night's date night, you're driving, and they'd buy him food and stuff. Like, they wouldn't leave him out to dry completely.
Right.
He'd be like, you're driving us around tonight. You're getting fed, but it's date night, and you're basically babysitting us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to drink and have fun. And so like he had days where like 2 a.m. he was standing on the beach trying to get Corey to put his pants back on and like get back in the car because it's cold as shit, it's freezing, I'm not coming in there after you. And Lizette is naked up the beach like and he's like, I'm not even trying. Actual thing that we got that phone call at about 2:30 in the morning. Like, so Lizette's naked and run away. I don't know where she is, but Corey's in the water and it's like 20 degrees outside. He doesn't want to get back in the car. What do I do? He's like 8 foot tall. Like,
Yeah, that's rough.
I can't make him. And we're like, tell him there's food in there.
That's
Well,
legit.
part of the reason why this specifically was Norm's apprenticeship, his like hazing, was because Norm had a problem with finding a stopping point. He had a he like would get sucked into anything he did, be it a customer interaction that was progressive, that was like long past the point of he should have bailed him and like, okay, well, you don't want to get tattooed, then you need to leave.
Right. Right.
And like he would, or like a design that clearly was not working, in the case of he spent 2 whole days trying to line up a single top line for a tattoo over my elbow, and couldn't figure out getting a perfectly straight line all the way around.
Yeah, which is tough.
Like 48, he spent literally 48 hours trying to make make the first guideline. 48 hours of me just standing there in the shop still staring at a wall with my sleeve rolled up so he could do it.
Sometimes it's hard to let it go. Sometimes it feels like it's something that you should be able to do.
But that's an important lesson, as there is a stopping point at every project. And so Norm got progressively weirder and weirder requests, like, hey, you're coming to date night, and then date night would get more outrageous and more weird, and Corey and Lizette would go and try to do crazier things, like, hey, we jumped a 20-foot fence, come get us. You can't leave till we go. Because they were trying to push him to just say, fuck it, I'm done, I'm not coming to get you. He would never do it. He wouldn't do it. He would always try to go in there, and it was like, it long after the point where me and his girlfriend, Libby, who was apprenticing there, was like, it's what they want you to do, just say fuck it. No.
They definitely gave me, when I was the apprentice, a task that was incredibly objectionable, like something where I was kind of questioning it. I was just like, should I go do that? One, it's dangerous. Two, it's really gross. Like, this is just not something that I ever want to do. And I was on the fence there, and thankfully we had a piercer at the time that just kind of took me to the side and just kind of like, he walked past me real quick and kind of whispered it out of the side of his mouth. He's like, man, I wouldn't do that. Just tell them to go fuck themselves. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. And so I was like, I'm not doing this. That's messed up. That's super gross. It's dangerous. I'm not doing it. They're like, yeah, that's respectable. I wouldn't do that either.
What did they want you to do? A shot of ink that had been used?
Oh, hell no. No, they never did anything like that.
I got.
Oh, no.
That's the one I got, is after a tattoo had been done. It was on my significant other, but after that was done, they were like, this is your apprentice. This is clean up. Come on.
So for a general rule, like I said, my mentor.
Not a general rule. This was not a general rule. Sorry to clarify. This was like a on demand. Every so often, my mentor would be like, clean up, and you had to shot whatever pot of ink he was pointing at. Usually it was unused, but that one I knew had just been used in a tattoo.
Nope.
That was when I was like, no.
So what I was saying was, as a general rule, my mentor would not ask me to do anything that he would not do himself.
Sure.
Yeah, which is, like I said, he made it his point, his job, I guess, to be better than what he had to go through. Because so much of what he had to go through was just 100% unreasonable. Like there was no reason for the abuse that he took. And he basically vowed, like, I'm not going to do that to an apprentice. Like, I would not ask you to do anything that I would not do myself. And this was just one of those things that, if push came to shove, I've had to do similar things since then, since becoming an artist. And he would have done it if he absolutely had to. But it's one of those things where, again, he was pretty much just hoping that I would stand up for myself. And I've seen that with other apprentices that we had in that shop since I started tattooing. We got to a point where we had this girl that was just she wanted to be super compliant with everything. And we're like, no, you've got to stand up for yourself. Like, you just saw somebody like threaten to shoot one of us the other day. Like, you're going to have to be able to deal with that once you're out of your apprenticeship. Like, you need to be able to stand up for yourself and get loud. And she was like, yeah, I know, I understand. She's like, no, like, we need you to be able to do this. And at a point, it got to a place where we were just like, look, tell us to go fuck ourselves. Like, you can say it however you want. Just for the next 30 minutes, you can say whatever rowdy stuff, whatever nasty, awful things that you want to say to any of us in the shop, and there will be zero repercussions. 30 minutes, you get free reign. Tell us whatever you want. You can like tell us you want to like murder us, like we're just assholes. You could say whatever you want, no punishment. And she was like, I don't know. I just can't do that. I was like, what are we supposed to do with that? Like,
it's and it's hard. It's also hard because you don't want to discourage like the personality of the person coming in, because
oh, absolutely.
that's also part of the reason why of that spark that you first saw in them, that you think, oh yeah, you're gonna be a great artist. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. Tattooing is you will see weird shit. You will see absolutely ridiculous shit.
And you will deal with awful people.
Oh yeah, and like I've complained about people at the restaurant being like, well, this was undercooked. Someone coming in a week later going, well, I didn't realize the gold wasn't actually going to be like, gold and shiny. That was one I had. They came in, they complained, and they left a shitty Yelp review because I guess I hadn't explained to them clearly enough on the intake that the gold part of their tattoo was not going to actually be
shine like gold. Yeah, like you have to assume everything you're getting tattooed on you is going to be viewed through a layer of your own skin. If you put gold under your skin, it's not going to be shiny.
Well, the gold came out like it was shaded and everything like gold.
Right.
It just wasn't chrome.
Yeah, they expect like metallic, like glittery, and it's not a thing.
Right. Or the woman who screamed at me that I deserve to be run over by a bus because of my terrible customer service, because she got a tattoo bigger than she had expected it to be, and then was like pissed that we couldn't shrink it later.
Right. You just get weird interactions and requests and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and when you're in that situation, as the tattoo artist in that situation, you can't just be like, yeah, okay, yeah. It's like, right. You're like, no, that's fucking unreasonable. Like, that's not a thing that can happen in reality. Sorry, right. You need to leave now.
Because that's the other thing that happens is other clients and other customers in that shop who see that interaction and see an artist like responding like that to an unreasonable request are either going to go one or two ways. They're either going to think, oh, I can make unreasonable requests, and all I have to do is just push a little bit and they'll bend over like a house of cards.
Right.
Or they start thinking, what? That guy didn't even stand up to that Karen. What the hell?
Yeah,
is this person even really capable of doing this if they can't even tell someone to go fuck themselves like here? Yeah, How good at their job are they really? They didn't really explain. Like, this customer was all the customer is seeing is that there's an unsatisfied person, and that we as the artists are potentially responsible.
Yeah, I mean, you can't let yourself be a doormat.
Yeah.
Like a mildly related story. We had a buddy who's a tattooer around here who occasionally would go and tattoo at like biker events. And at one point he had a group of club members come up and say, oh yeah, we want these tattoos. It's going to be like us three, and you're going to do them for free. And he's just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. They're like, do you know who we are? You know what we're going to do to you? He's just like, well, you might as well, whatever you're going to do to me, you might as well do it quick, because I've got shit to do. Like, I'm not doing your fucking tattoos for free. And they stood there for a second and were like, yeah, you're pretty all right. And then just walked away.
The hell?
Yeah, like if he hadn't stood up for himself, he would have been their slave for the entire weekend. He would have been doing club tattoos for free the whole weekend. I mean, people will try to take advantage of you, and you can't be that person that just bends over and takes it.
Absolutely. The first shop that I worked at, the owner of all people was the person I had the most problems with trying to get away with doing more than I was strictly supposed to be doing.
Really?
As soon as he heard that I had piercing experience, he thought, oh, two birds with one stone. And because you're the apprentice, I don't have to pay you the piercer cut.
No.
So, oh yeah. he tried that shit on me, and like, we did not even make it to the back office where he was like, "Oh, good, let me get you the gloves and then and all the keys for the piercing room. You can take over 3 days a week." I was like, "Yeah. So on the days that I'm piercing, what would my shop cut be?
Right.
We need to talk numbers."
Yeah, this needs to be
And
separated. These need to be
oh
discrete.
yeah, we're gonna have a conversation. Good thing we're heading to the back room. Let's step in there right now. And he went, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. What do you mean numbers? You're the apprentice. Sir, I am the tattoo apprentice.
Right.
Not the hole maker.
Mm-hmm.
You want the hole maker, you're going to have to pay for my APP certification to get that re-upped."
Yeah, that's yeah. Like there are unreasonable requests like that too. Like we actually tried to I guess sort of re-apprentice a piercer that was at a shop. They tried to be trained by this shop, but like the owner put a limit on the number of gloves they were allowed to use per procedure. Right.
Not just unreasonable, but unsafe.
Yeah, incredibly so. So like this person had gone like she'd gone through her entire apprenticeship up to that point. I want to say like about a year or maybe like right around a year of training. And like the whole time had it beaten into her head like you can only use 2 pairs of gloves per procedure no matter what. I was like, that's crazy. No.
Holy hepatitis, Batman. I have wasted half a box of gloves just trying to get a stencil on before.
Right, whatever it takes. Like even with glove
Yeah.
prices now, it's still cheap insurance.
It is. And God, especially because of bloodborne pathogens, I recently had COVID, and I know exactly where I got it from because there was only one place where I had questionable exposure.
Yeah.
And it was one table that showed up at my restaurant, and I'm pretty sure it was them. And I'm like, after that whole experience, I'm afraid to go outside. I can't even imagine knowing all that you do and having access to all of those gloves. I can't even imagine, like, if I was in a shop or working in that kind of industry right now, I feel like COVID and the pandemic would have had me like full on germaphobe wearing gloves out in public. Like, oh God, I'm wearing my biohazard suit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that when you're focused on that long enough, when you have the basic training and you focus on it long enough, you just sort of innately like pay attention to the things that you touch and the order in which you touch things, and you can consciously make an effort to like not touch your face or like not touch certain things that you would later touch that might spread things. Like you can kind of keep track of your like chain of you can
Not custody. I know what you're talking about. Your chain of contact.
yes yeah, so that's one of those
But,
things that
yeah.
you can kind of like keep track of that to some degree. Of course, if you constantly do that like all the time, you will drive yourself absolutely batshit insane. But yeah, it's helped a bit. And of course, the habit of using hand sanitizer and washing your hands frequently. I mean, just that would help anyone. The amount of people that I found out because of the pandemic just don't wash their hands at all ever.
Oh my God, yes.
Or don't know how to wash their hands properly, like stuff that you should have retained from like grade school.
I had a Skype call at the beginning of my pandemic because my brother Skyped me or like a video called me or something while he was on the John, which that's not unusual. We're those people.
Fair.
We're that family who like we're so used to the phone that it's like, I gotta pee. Hold on. Okay. Well, anyway, so mom was being annoying. Blah 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 blah.
Right.
Now you know way too much about my family insights.
That's the least of the weird things that I've seen today.
Sure. I watched him finish up, do his thing, and without actually seeing anything, of course. We're not that close.
Right.
But he didn't wash his hands, and I was like, dude, get back the fuck in there and start washing. And he's like, oh, come on, it's not that bad. It's just me and I'm at home. And I'm like, get your gross ass back in there, and I made him wash his hands with me because he first did the whole like, okay, yeah, done, look, clean now, right? And I'm like, no, hand soap on the hands, and I started singing happy birthday to him, and I was
Right.
like, no, you're not done yet. One more happy birthday.
Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, got through it all, made it, then was like, okay, now you can rinse. And then I was like, okay, I know you got this from somewhere, and like I had to like impulse call my family and be like, okay, we're getting a hand washing tutorial because Michael is disgusting.
Yeah, just
Also,
people that you would normally think are like very like reasonable, intelligent people. It's the whole pandemic thing has really brought to light, like, you're like, that's fucked up. That's really messed up.
yeah.
Uh
And now I silently judge people. Oh my God. The number of staff at other restaurants I've gone to picking up, the other week I was picking up takeout from a corner store.
yeah.
Walk in and was like, yeah, can I run back, use the restroom real quick, come back while I was in there, a woman came out and she was clearly staff because she had like the apron and everything. And she just did the like wet your hands, splash, splash, walked out. And I was just like, can I cancel my food? Fuck no.
Yeah.
I just saw your staff go back on the floor without washing their hands.
The fact that I've talked to in the past 2 years, like grown adults that don't believe that germs are a thing because they can't see them, is insane.
I can't see Korea, but there.
That's actually a really good comparison. He's like, well, yeah.
I can't claim that one. I stole that one from Reddit a million years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that one's an old one from vaccines and talking about how we don't even know that these things are real. It's like, yeah, well, I can't see Korea either, but I know for fuck's sake that's real.
Yeah. Well, I can't see the curvature of the Earth, so obviously it's flat.
Yep.
The number of flat earthers that I've come across in the past 2 years, like, what is that? What is that really?
I told you about the accountant guy at the first shop that I work at and his crazy conspiracy theories.
The shop Dale Gribble.
Was one of them. Yes, this was. Well, he was. Dale Gribble at least has a personality. This guy was just a creep with some questionable political ideas and a lot of conspiracies that like make birds don't real seem cute and entertaining.
Oh my God.
He literally he not only was a flat earther, like I prompted him on this and I was like, well, if the Earth's flat, how come all the planets that we see in the sky are round? And he's like, well, they're not. They're flat too. They're just facing us.
I've also heard
that's what the new moon is. It's the moon turning.
It's just a disc just turning in the sky.
It's just a CD spinning.
Right.
One side's painted black, the other side is shiny.
Yeah, it's a CD spinning. It's tied up in the sky with like fishing line and hung from a thumbtack in the ceiling.
Yes, and he was like, yeah, and what? Well, that I'm like, okay, well, if it's flat like that, how come we get the new moon? And he goes, well, that's when it's at a perpendicular to us, and we're looking along the flat edge.
So it's just microns thick.
That's where you're getting the moon like this, and then it's going like this.
Yeah.
And it's always facing the Earth like that.
Yeah. God painted the edges black so you can't tell.
Yep.
Oh man,
This was legitimately a thing.
I really I understand if somebody legitimately didn't have access to education, because I get that that's a thing. But like at this point, it's so common.
These people. So, but there's that famous screenshot of the Flat Earth Society where it says Flat Earth Society. We have members all around the globe, and it's like, read that back.
Right.
Just reread what you just wrote.
Right. Oh my God. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Like if nothing else, COVID has definitely been good for exposing cracks in our society,
Oh,
in business and
so
industry, in
all the broken
education.
stairs, all the wobbly stairs and broken stairs that need fixed. The people
Yeah.
that we gotta look out for. Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of oh, he had some really funny ones that we were like, these are too. I kind of am curious because of how freaking bizarre they were.
Yeah.
Um. Oh yeah, the other one was not that there are aliens out there, but that Area 51 is just the exit for the stage set that is Earth.
Gotcha. Sure. Uh,
We're all in a giant Truman Show.
yeah. See, that kind of plays into the flat disk planet thing, because I had talked to somebody that thought it was a dome over the flat Earth, and the planets were being
Is.
projected onto the dome.
Hey, that matches Copernicus.
Oh my God! Don't do this.
That every medieval astronomer had it right. Galileo was a liar.
Oh
That's
my
why
God.
the church was so against him.
What a
He was
kook.
going to expose that because he was going to expose the Truman Show and the producers.
Yeah, a centuries-long Truman Show.
That-
But the lizard people must be running the tech outside of the outside of our terrarium.
we're a battery for them. It's that Rick and Morty episode where we're a microverse inside of a miniverse inside of a macroverse, empowering someone's car.
That just sounds like slavery with extra steps.
Shut up.
That quote from that episode got me. He was like, that just sounds like slavery with extra steps. He's like, you don't know anything.
No, because they're producing for each other, with each other, for each other.
And running.
I just watched that one the other night.
Did you? Running the lights on your car.
I did. Yes.
Keep summer
You
safe.
power the turn signal in my car, Richard.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole episode was just ridiculous.
So good. It's so good.
I can't keep up with it.
I keep having these TV show ideas, these brilliant TV show ideas. Someone needs to get me a job as like a Hollywood exec. So recently I had my idea of we get amateurs who think they're bartenders trying to make like classic cocktails and then being rated by drunken judges who are actual bartenders.
That sounds awesome.
Mostly because I want to be able to sit there and be like that. Why are you grabbing that? No, you need Ango bitters. Ango bitters! This is an old fashioned, not a fucking Cosmo. I want to be that person. My neighbors would love me.
See, it's been.
I want to see this. We have enough tattoo shows where it's talented people working.
But see, all of this stuff has been democratized at this point. YouTube exists. You could make this show right now.
That's true. Dear TikTok, which of my 8 following would like to come meet me in YouTube for a show?
Oh, you can totally
bring your own eBay tattoo kit.
Just make that.
This will be my new live thing. This will be my new content: is beer reviews, cats, and we're gonna. Hi guys, I rounded up 8 of my drunkest followers to do some bad tattoos on each other, and now we're gonna rate them.
Oh my God, no. Yeah, that'll be like
it's gonna be bad.
Your whole live concept now, just a whole series, just weekly lives of nothing but that.
I make people send me in drunken doodles. It can be no bigger than a Post-it note to tattoo on someone. And then, that'll be it. Everybody, like, you can be a guest on my live. I'll interview you. But the price is you're getting tattooed. You're getting what the viewer sent in. You're getting it. It's going to be no bigger than a Post-it note. And it's not going to be somewhere where you can look at it while I'm tattooing you.
Wow.
So, like, on your butt cheek or something.
So I've had this idea, and I hate saying it openly, like on a podcast, because I don't know whether or not I'm actually going to follow through with it at any point.
I won't tell anyone. Well, now we'll hold you accountable.
Oh, fair enough.
I'm your accountability buddy.
Always need an accountability buddy. But
you're going to get comments like, Shane, have you made any progress on your videos?
Oh, don't do that.
Shane, have you made... When's the next one dropping? When can I hear updates?
So my idea was to have episodes of interviews while tattooing someone. Yeah, like
I like that.
even have like a multi-camera setup to get like the whole scene and close-ups on people's faces, and then one on the tattoo, and have like a set selection of flash that you can choose, and then just like whatever ridiculous shit comes up during this like half an hour tattoo is the whole episode. Because I mean, inevitably,
you're the armchair tattoo artist.
Yeah, like inevitably.
I mean, armchair's like
weird shit comes up during tattoos.
Always. While I was getting my Maid of No Man's Land, I actually ended up bringing up like the whole horrible, tragic backstory of how I ended up being dragged across the Soviet Union by my parents. This was the first time I'd met my friend Libby, and this was one of her Apprentice tattoos too.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's
and she's
just
like, I just met you,
but it's
cool.
This weirdly intimate situation where you're physically close to someone, and like they're letting you intentionally injure them. There's that trust there, and just like,
and you also kind of have to not care that you're hurting them a little bit, because otherwise you get like bogged down in the I'm hurting this person, and
right.
Then
and it's a very strange connection with like a random stranger that just walks in and sits down in your chair. And yeah, strange stuff comes out. People will tell you the weirdest stuff.
2 hours later, you never see them again
sometimes. And more often than not, I do see them again later, but have no fucking recollection of who they are.
God, that was that gave me... I have memory issues already because of ADHD and being neurodivergent. I also have a lot of sensory processing issues. So my memory is questionable at best. And I've gotten really good at being like oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I've blinked on your name. I see 1,000 people a day and I've forgotten it. But yeah, how are you doing? I totally remember doing that rose I did on you.
Right. See, that's the thing. As soon as I see the tattoo, I know exactly who you are, because I've spent like 3 hours staring at that part of you. But even then, God help me if I see you outside of the tattoo shop, if I see you out of context, like I can know your face and know exactly who you are, like in the tattoo shop. If I see you in a grocery store and you're like, hey, what's up, dude? I will have no clue who you are. You're like, hey, you.
The only walk-in I ever took in my entire tattoo career, because this was the only person who was not a pre-planned out person who I had already arranged to come get something and practice on. They just wanted a little infinity symbol. It was real basic, and that's why it got thrown to me. They were like, here, you can totally do this one. Go have fun. From start to finish, this is your interaction.
Yeah.
I was so stoked out of the gate. I was all like, yeah, personalities on, charms on. What are you doing? Let's talk, blah, blah, blah. We talked at probably what was like a 15-second. Let's fill that line in a little more, make sure it's solid. Done.
Yeah.
That took maybe in about 45 minutes, because we got bogged down talking about some show I was obsessed with at the time. And it turns out they did live in my area. I did see them at the grocery store months later. And they're all like, oh, hey, how are you? And I sat there and they're like, oh, you did I was like your first tattoo that you ever did. And I'm like, hold on. And they're holding their arm out. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. You have to get like to that point where you're like, hold on. How was I? And oh, yeah, now I remember doing it. Now I remember getting 3 inches away from your butt.
It's ridiculous the amount of stuff that you will remember once that switch is flipped. Like you see the tattoo and you know who they are. Like you're like, oh yeah, your cat was having surgery and your son was going to school
and your mom died at the same time.
Yeah, I was like, how's all that working out for you? Are you doing good? You doing okay?
Did you get another interview after that one with CVS you were talking about? And
right.
They're like, even stuff that they're like, wait, I told you that?
It's like, man, that happened fucking 8 years ago. What?
Yes. Oh my goodness. And yeah, that's the first artist that I ever worked under as a mentor. He was like that. His memory was terrible. John was great. I loved him, but his memory sucked. He could never remember client names to save his life. He could barely remember my name. I got called like every variation of a woman's name you can imagine, and we just all knew he was referring to me.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that was how I knew that I had graduated to The Apprentice, was when he consistently got my name right and I wasn't Linda or Amanda or Jen.
So my mentor would do that, but it was the Ron Swanson method of
Yes.
naming people. He did it just to let me know my place.
Yes.
Yeah, he would call
He said,
all the apprentices the wrong name just to let them know he didn't care about them.
John said that was why he did that after that show came out, but John didn't know about that until the show came out. He was doing it
Right.
because he legitimately had Alzheimer's, and we all kind of knew it.
Well, see, my mentor was doing it before that show came out.
Oh yeah.
It was just that was
I think
also the reason.
Very, yeah. But that's a great one. What was the weirdest thing you've ever had to do as an apprentice? Not like gross or horrific or awful, but like just bizarre. Like you found yourself standing there like, normal people don't do this.
Yeah, there's so much stuff. I mean, there's a lot that I've like intentionally tried to forget. I feel like it's that way with a lot of tattoo artists. Like you encounter something, you're just like, well, that's going in the locker, and we're never thinking about that again.
We will never discuss this again.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
There's a couple of Christmas parties that I very purposely don't remember a damn thing.
Fair enough. Yeah, like the one thing that comes to mind was showing up to the shop and opening the door, and I knew something was wrong. It was the dead of winter. Everything was frozen outside. There was just ice hanging off everything and snow, and I knew something was wrong because they started being nice to me. I walked through the door and they're like, "Hey Shane, hey buddy, how you doing today?" I was like,
"Oh no,
this isn't right. What are you doing here?" He was like, "Nothing, buddy." I was like, you have somebody in like a clown suit that's gonna like pop out with like a chainsaw? Like somebody gonna just like try to jump scare me or something? What is going on here? Like, nothing like that. We wouldn't do that to you, buddy. I was like, no, seriously, what's happening right now? They were just like, well, we've just got one task for you today. We know you just showed up. We've got one task, and all you need to do. It was a little 2-story building, and it was sitting out right next to the road in the front parking lot of a mall. And we were upstairs, and there was an elevator on the outside of the building that would take you from the ground floor up to us. And they were just like, what we need you to do is just walk around and just press the button on the elevator and just open that up. Just take a look in there. I was like, nah, there is somebody that's going to jump out and scare me, isn't there? They're like, no, we wouldn't do that. When I tell you I was not prepared.
Oh no.
I walked outside of the shop, like the 4 to 6 feet over to where these elevator doors are, and I pressed this button, and I swear to God, the gates of hell opened up in front of me. Have you ever smelled frozen human poop? Because I have. Yes. Yeah. Like,
unfortunately.
Yeah, it's bad.
I was an RA at college, yes.
That's wow. I don't immediately come up with a situation where that's a thing, but
I've also smelled what flaming feces smells like.
Yeah, that's not good either.
No, I know way too much.
But I pressed this button and these doors just opened up in front of me like slow motion. And I tell you, I've never seen this much shit from one person. Like it was like the color of Dijon mustard and like the texture of cream of wheat. Like something was very wrong with this person's guts. And it was just a lot. There was like a glove stuck to one of the walls in it, and it was on the ceiling. It was so bad. This was a carpeted elevator. It was bad. It was so bad. And I'm just stunned. I don't know what to do with this. And I just walk back around into the shop, and they're like, "What'd you think, buddy?" And I was like, I don't like today. I don't like today at all. Yeah.
Today at all. I got one semi-funny poop-related story that is not tattooing related.
Oh God.
If you'd like to hear quickly.
Sure, go ahead.
This was when I first started getting tattoos. One of the jobs that I got to pay for my addiction and fund my tattoo habit was working at a place in the UK called Primark or Primark. It's now in the US. It's like Old Navy level of cheap, but like Forever 21 level of style.
Huh.
So a lot of basic, but they also have like a lot of basics, decent quality. It's not like bad quality, but it's like Old Navy cheap.
Right.
So I was working here part-time as like a holiday sales associate at shitty retail hell. And this clothing store, we were downtown in Glasgow on the high street, and one night our heaters, by the way, had been out at the doors. Our heating had been out for about a week at this point. Those of us who were working on the floor were wearing like jackets as we worked, and those of us who were like upstairs and stuff were like a little more protected. But those of us in the fitting rooms, the way the building was situated, the fitting rooms were on an exterior wall.
Yeah.
Most customers coming in couldn't tell the heat was an issue.
Yeah.
We had a customer come in. She went into the fitting room, and after she left, apparently customers started complaining about issues with the fitting rooms. Now, I get called over because they're like, "You're the newest hire. You're the person that we're gonna send in there.
Right.
You drew the short straw by merit of the fact that you're the newest person." So they send me back there to go investigate what the complaints of smell were. This person had gone into the fitting room with a large number of clothing items. They'd gone back to like the furthest room stall and left all the clothing items in there, and then like had hustled out without making eye contact with anyone. So I hear this and I'm immediately suspicious.
Yeah.
I get back there and everyone's like this with their shirts up going like,
Oh my God.
and I'm like, all right, I hate you guys already. This is gonna be bad. So I wander back there. I get like one of the like hooks for putting stuff up on high shelves, and I'm like pushing the curtain back because I don't want to touch it with my bare hands.
Right.
And this poor woman had, I guess, mistaken the fitting room for a bathroom stall.
Yeah.
Made a mess, and then used the clothing they brought in to wipe up the mess and then themselves, and left all the clothing in a pile.
Why have I heard this so many times from people that have worked in clothing stores?
That's not the first time that happened to me while I worked there, and I only worked there for 3 months.
Yeah, like
that is not the only time. It's a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
People think, oh, well, it's not my clothes, so it's Old Navy's problem if I leave them in here all covered in stuff.
The same tattooer that I was talking about earlier that had the station right up by the front counter. She had worked in the mall that was across the parking lot at a couple of different places. And I want to say one of them was, it was like JCPenney's or Sears or something like that. And the exact same thing happened all the time. She had to deal with this all the time. But one time, someone shit under the bench. Like the bench was attached to the wall and there was nothing under it. They got under there and shit under the bench.
Like on the underside of it or just underneath it?
Just underneath it. But there's like a foot of space. There's only like a foot. This was not a tall bench. There was not a lot of space down there. Like the angles, the logistics behind pooping under a bench that's a foot off the ground is just baffling.
Yeah. Like I'm picturing them like sitting with like their knees and legs over and their feet on the bench there with their like kind of laying like on their back on the ground so that their knees are going up at a right angle with them. I've got poop logistics down the brain, Shane. I'm thinking of how like this must have been, you know what? We're all jerks for assuming this person was clearly doing some yoga salutations, saluting the sun with their butts or something.
Yoga poo.
And they just happen to move in a wrong way, and it's an accident, and we're judging this unfortunate.
Fucking pooga. That was no. Yeah, there's just so much going on there. I can't.
There's hot yoga, there's beer yoga now, goat yoga. There's
Yeah,
poop yoga, I'm
yeah,
sure.
poop yoga. Oh God damn it. We brought it. We
Also,
spoke it
is
into
it just
existence.
me, or are we all like on some existential pee and poo crisis on TikTok right now?
I've noticed that it came up recently also. And I'm about done talking about the poops. Um, but,
All right, new subject.
yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm can't talk about poop anymore. So I mean,
Nope.
your
I
artwork,
feel like I've done that.
you still make artwork, right?
I do.
Where do you sell your artwork?
Mostly on Etsy or private sellers,
Really?
in galleries at the moment. I
Oh, nice.
currently make art dolls.
Yeah, I have seen some of those on TikTok, but I didn't know that you were actually selling them.
So I have several that I'm working on. I actually have the body of one that I'm about to be starting on.
Yeah.
But it's everything from I do the hair so she has custom hair that I put in that she originally did not have. She had like hot pink and like baby blue in there.
Yeah.
And a totally different face. I custom painted that face in there, and then I sewed her outfit here. She's got her own little tidy dress, which also the pockets are functional because you got to have real pockets even if they're a doll. Gonna get my little pocket jab in there. But
yeah, no, I
another
totally
one,
understand. Totally understand. Like I'm sitting over here with like dude pockets. I could fit like a 2-liter in each of my front pockets.
So this is another art doll. I also do custom build-ups. She actually has a hollow body capable of being filled with LEDs.
Oh, that's cool.
That was originally so the original plan was that I wanted to put like a battery pack in her torso and wiring going up into her head.
Yeah.
Because her head, unfortunately, is all the way over there on the other side of the room. The mock-up for her head is actually a little TV.
Yeah.
That I am eventually trying to get a little tiny LCD panel put in, like made in like some like a resin or acrylic cast casing for it, so that I could actually have a little tiny programmable screen for her.
Yeah. Actually,
and stuff like that. I can also show you. I have quite a few of my paintings right here. Let me just angle the light over a little, and I'm gonna give you a brief tour of my art wall. So. This is my art wall. This is either art that I have found inspiring or things that I have myself painted.
Yeah.
This is a painting that I did about 1.5 years ago. This is the Thread of Fate.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this is one that I did about 2 years ago called Identity.
Yeah.
I have a series of slimy snail girls that I like painting with big slugs.
Oh, that's super rad. And I'm sorry for the background noise. I can only.
No, there's. I'm
sorry.
There's none at all, actually.
Oh, gotcha.
There's no background noise at all. So these are all oil and linseed oil, a little bit of turpentine on canvas. This is Secrets.
That's awesome.
And this is actually a portrait of my friend Crystal, who lives out in California right now.
Nice.
This is one of my biggest finished pieces right now. This is Imperator.
Yeah.
And this one I did at the beginning of last year, at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
This one's one of the ones that has been hanging on my wall the longest. But I also have, this is the painting I've been working on for the longest term. This is a 4-year project called The Vampire's Wife.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm still working on it. I still, every few months, I get the urge to just oil into it and do some more.
Yeah.
And like, you can see how much I've kind of like sucked into that face there. And
yeah, you've got a lot going on there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
So that's just what I have right now here at my new house.
Yeah. So is there someplace online that people can go to find your work and potentially buy it?
Yes. You can find me either on Etsy at Voxx or also I post on my Instagram anytime I have art sales. I also do custom clothing and painted clothing at Slimy Apparel,
Oh,
which
cool.
is stuff along this lines.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll go ahead and
And
put
this is a
I'll go ahead and
yeah.
put your Instagram and I mean, well, any other links that you want me to share down in the description of
Sure.
this episode, so we can
Thank you
hopefully
so
get some people
much.
over to you.
Hell yeah. Um, Slimy Apparel is a custom case by case basis. It's basically with the clothing items. That's kind of what I largely do these days with a lot of the paintings tend to be for me. Anything that I have up for sale is stuff that it's usually older work that I'm not looking because I'm not like trying to get back into oil painting. It's such a thing to get. I love oil paints, but it's so hard to get motivated to do them because it's like all the hassle of setting up and like getting everything out and getting.
Yeah,
And I don't have the space anymore where I can just have my easel up
right.
24/7 and be
Because
able to
that's the
dip in
way
and out
around
as
it.
I please. Yeah, but I can't do that because now
Right.
I don't have space.
Yeah,
So
I
at the moment, I
understand.
focus on art dolls and on clothing items. I am actually working on my latest project as part of a Halloween release. Is I've been doing experimenting with dye patterns because I'm painting up a series of bandanas that are going to be one-off series with interesting and cool designs on them.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super cool. So, I mean, like, have you done a bunch of dye stuff before, or is this like your first foray into that?
I have done dye before, so I'm very big around DIY dye, like
Hmm.
not using actual fabric dyes to do things. So, like for example, for this is acrylic paint and hair dye.
Whoa, really? That's cool.
Yep. Um, and this has been through the washing machine twice now, so it is fairly color fast.
Yeah,
These are 100% just basic 100% cotton like craft bandanas I got from like Walmart and Michaels and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, Not super expensive. I think they were like $2 or $3 a piece, and I just got a bunch of them because I just wanted to do some tests on like dyeing different, testing different saturations and stuff,
yeah.
and seeing how that worked. Because my plan, um, I told you I'm kind of trying to now. I'm kind of really big into that like woodwork etching style of art. I love illustrations like that. That's my whole jam right now.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It lends itself so well to um like painting on jackets, and I blend a lot of my old tattoo flash into my art these days. One someday I'll have to send you a photo of some of my old portfolios so you can have a look
Yeah,
yourself.
by all means, that'd be awesome.
um and of course I would absolutely appreciate your feedback, because if I'm trying to get back into this I need to start hearing some criticism so I know what I've been letting get lazy since I stopped really doing drawing every day.
Yeah.
um I've also been focusing on sticker designs. I'm very digitally
Awesome.
based. I've always kind of been digitally based.
Yeah.
Just I've kind of adopted a lot of technologies really early, uh, basically from my childhood because of how I grew up with moving all over the place. I couldn't have 56 sketchbooks that I carried with me. I had to have like one that I could
Right. Right.
yank around, or I couldn't have a horde of. That was the one thing my family did collect was books.
Yeah.
I didn't have like 47 like VHS tapes and movies and DVDs and CDs and whatnot. So I was always on like the streaming and the whatnots.
Right.
But
Right.
even before it became like right when the iPad Pro came out, I bought one of the first generations, and I still have mine because I had been using my tablet to draw for years before that was like even a standard thing. And I've like digital art was actually kind of how I first ended up getting into tattoo art.
Yeah.
Seeing all these cool people that had tattoos that I was too young to get, and lived in a country where tattooing wasn't accepted or even commonplace. Well, if it was commonplace, it wasn't regulated. And if it wasn't regulated, it probably wasn't sterile or safe.
Yeah.
Um, I have a couple of tattoos from very questionable, very sketchy shops. I very hesitantly use the word shops because they weren't even a building.
What?
From oh yeah, do you want to see the the tattoo I never got covered up that I got while drunk in Peru.
Okay.
All right. Let
Let's
me
see what
stand
we
up
got
real
here.
quick. All right. Now, I'm sorry. I now know that getting a tattoo while drunk and intoxicated, bad idea.
Yeah.
Just disclaimer.
Yeah, just
for
as
anybody
a
who
general
doesn't
rule.
who does. So this is underneath the spite tattoo lines you see there.
Yeah.
This was the face of Inti Raimi,
Okay.
the face of the sun god
Okay.
that I got as a tramp stamp.
Yeah.
As a it was 2008. I was working in Peru over the summer visiting my folks, and the ambassador's daughter and the second in command, the assistant ambassador's other daughter had asked me to take them out partying and clubbing and show them the town. And so I'm like, all right, let's do it. And one of them had mentioned they had always wanted to get a tattoo and just had never, like, weren't brave enough to do it on their own. And like, I seemed to know what I was doing. Would I go with them? And I'm like, yeah, I'll go with you, sure. And we walked into the first shop we saw, which was a street shop in the middle of forest town, Peru, who led us like around this like weird maze of back alleys and tunnel and like hallways behind the store front.
Yeah.
To this area where it was like 2 walls, a roof, and it was like a shed. Yeah. And
that sounds
that was it.
interesting. I mean, how bad, other than that, how bad was the experience?
I later went and got my VCH pierced there.
Really? So you trusted them enough for that?
No, I was just drunk again and happened to be in the same part of town and was like, this is a great idea.
Fair enough. Sometimes you just make those decisions.
That was after I got I started piercing too.
Wow. Well, to be fair, tattoo artists and piercers don't always make the most solid decisions, just like...
I think it's because we think... I was like, I've got that BBP. I know better. I'm fine.
Or you just stop caring about your own safety. I think a lot of tattooers...
You're like, as long as it's not the customer.
Right. I think a lot of tattooers, like especially tattooers, are the worst about taking care of their tattoos.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I think it's just like, yeah, whatever, screw it. And you just let it do what it's gonna do. Like you could wash it regularly. You could use that lotion. You're just like, meh, whatever. I don't care.
I've been better about it lately, but I feel really called out right now.
Yeah, I'm talking about myself here. Not even gonna lie. To everyone that I tattoo, I will tell you the right way to take care of it, and I will get angry at you if you don't take care of it that way. But
when I don't do it,
do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, don't use me as your shining example of what the fuck to do with your tattoos.
The best bit is my ex who used to mentor me. He's the guy who's doing my blackout project right now on my left arm. And he told me, we're still very good friends. It was very amicable. It's not like a bad thing.
Yeah.
But he told me, he's like, especially in the elbow ditch, you need to be on top of washing and lotion and all this blah, 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 because it will fall out.
Yep.
You will get white lines. And I was like, I know what I'm doing.
Or you wake up with
sure enough.
Yep. Have you had a point where you woke up with your arm bent and it was healed together?
When I got my back tattooed, I fell asleep. This was before Tagaderm was like standard practice.
Right.
Or Sanoderm or whatever it gets called.
Yeah.
Your area of the woods. I fell asleep on I washed everything, lotioned it all up, went to bed, had a couple of drinks to think, celebrate the tattoo. One turned in one more like 4 and fell asleep on my back. Woke up to like, okay. And it was coldish enough out that I like brought the blanket with me to go make coffee in the morning, and
Yeah.
wasn't like didn't realize until I got to the bathroom and was like, all right, let's get in the shower. That I threw the blanket off and it didn't fall.
Oh no.
And I'm like, wait, is it like caught on my pajama top or something? And then I'm like, oh wait, I'm not wearing a top. That's why had the blanket this morning. Wait a minute. Oh shit, I got tattooed yesterday, and I turned around and it had dried.
Yep.
You could see the outline of the tattoo through the bed sheet.
Yep.
I had to get into the shower with the bed sheet on and let the fabric, like clutching this bundle of bed sheet and let it soak.
At least you knew to do that.
Enough.
At least you knew to do that. Because seriously, like, we have had people just think,
I did try to yank it.
Oh no.
I just got to the like pulling at the corner and was like, no. What do I do with a burn? Oh yeah, Google. Called my friend who was a nurse and went, I have a burn that the bandage is stuck to. What do I do? And she goes, get it wet.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, cool. I'll let you know how this goes. And
yep.
Saw her for lunch weeks later, and she's like, how'd the burn go? And I'm like, what burn? Oh, it was a tattoo. It was a tattoo. It was fine. I had to toss those bed sheets out because it had a mirror image of my tattoo on them forever.
I mean,
and I was like, I'm pretty sure this is a biohazard at this point.
I mean, that's legit what I tell people. Like, verbatim is, if you go to sleep with a fresh tattoo that's not dry, like 100% dry, you will wake up without one, and your sheets will have a new one. Like, it will heal to you.
And it was, oh yeah, it was a heavy ass fucking blanket too. Oh, it was bad.
Yeah, that does not sound good. Jesus. All right.
But then again, you name it and I've done it. With tattoo healing, so.
What are we talking about here? Like, what's your worst healing experience?
So, I don't know how visible this is going to be on the camera. Can you see there's a fist right here.
I can't see.
That's what this pink is.
The fist, but I can see like a couple little holidays in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a power fist, like that very stereotypical design. Here's the thumb that comes up. The fingers felt folded
I see.
over.
I see.
Comes down to here, and then it said power fist. That was the worst heal. Mostly because you can still, just looking at it, even from like 10 feet away, you can still see the very faint outline in person of where the fist was on my leg.
Yeah.
Now, it's a lot better now than it was. My buddy Norm tattooed it, and I should have called the tattoo before he did it. This was one of those, haha, the fuck I won't. I will absolutely get that joke tattoo. I should have called it because he was stressed out. He was in a weird situation at the shop, and this was just before he had finished his apprenticeship and then had to leave.
Yeah.
He had three of the artists standing over him, backseat tattooing him, all giving him contradictory advice, and he was nervous, and I knew it, and that's why I say I should have called it, because I could tell he was not in the right frame of mind that he should have been tattooing.
Trust your gut on that.
He overworked my leg because like halfway through filling it in, one of the guys came up, was like, why are you shading like this? You need to be filling in the color like this, otherwise it's not going to heal right, and made him go over the part he'd already tattooed doing it the other way. So not quite his fault, but also he shouldn't have been doing that. Everybody was at fault in this tattoo.
Yeah.
Everybody, even people who weren't tattooing, were at fault. And then I made the brilliant decision of going to my job after that and being like, well, that was a fucking brutal tattoo. I need several drinks. And proceeding to think, you know what? I'm going to keep it protected. I'm going to keep it wrapped. And then I'm wearing my Docs Martens for work tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep my Docs on. I had not realized the wrapping had slipped down my ankle at some point, so it just had the inside of boot rubbing against fresh tattoo, overworked skin,
Yep.
working in a gross, sweaty, nasty nightclub as a go-go dancer.
Yep. That'll do it.
So the logical thing happened. It got infected as hell.
Yeah.
To the point where I went to the doctor. I had like antibiotic and antibacterial creams I had to put on it every day. I had trouble standing on it. It was that bad.
Yep.
And that was even with me washing it regularly and everything. Sometimes if you're not 100% on top of it, it just still happens.
Yeah. Like it's
Like,
really bad, like how much a poorly healing leg tattoo will affect you. Like it will keep you awake at night. Like you won't be able to stand or walk right. It's crazy.
I worked in a job where I was standing or dancing. I needed to put weight on my leg,
Yep.
and I couldn't do that for like, and this was like 3-4 months. It still wasn't, it took for it to finally like properly at least heal to the point that it wasn't liquid
Right.
and there weren't like wet areas on the surface.
Yeah.
It was bad. And so I think I wore like knee socks or leggings, and I hid that, like specifically this leg, for like probably a year.
Jeez.
Until I begged my buddy Dustin to cover it up, and he did. And like even after it healed and like the skin was no longer like raw and fresh and infected,
Yeah.
it like you could still see the outlet. Like it was all, oh, the skin was all cratered. It looked like the special effects makeup they do on Gerard Butler for Phantom of the Opera Under the Mask.
Yeah, I can see that. I've had a tattoo heal like that before.
So that's what the shape of it looked like everywhere that was filled in. And like, I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel like it. The skin was so tight. It pulled in uncomfortable and painful ways as
it's
I
like
walked.
that thick scar
Even
tissue.
healed. Cause and there's no stretch to it. So even like, I couldn't like just flex my ankle around without hurting myself. So I was shocked when tattooing over it. We think that's what happened, is just perforated the skin enough that it was able to stretch.
Yeah.
For the first time probably in a year.
Crazy.
Yeah. But that was my worst heal. And since then I learned, at least for the first like 24 to 48 hours where there's like not a scab or covering on it, you gotta be like on the ball.
Yeah.
It's the first 48 hours are critical. After that, you gotta be good. You gotta be good and really on top of it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Like some tattoos are just really hard to take care of. It's just, that's the name of the game. Yeah. But yeah, we are coming up on almost 4 hours here. So I think it's,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's about time to wrap this up. And plus my dog is getting, little guy's getting kind of
like, I want to go out.
Yeah, he's making all sorts of noise back here. He definitely wants some attention.
Aww.
So I believe I'm going.
So it's like, this is the best you've ever been. You've been here, and I could be near you, and you weren't paying attention to me. This is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm a cat.
Yeah, but he is definitely looking to go outside. So I'm gonna cut this a little bit short.
Yeah, I'll let you go.
Yeah, but
of course. Thank you so much for having me and talking to me tonight.
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
Hanging out and chatting.
Yeah, thank you for being on. And one last time, where can people find you?
You can find me anywhere where you see Echo Voxx. If you see Echo Voxx somewhere, Instagram, Facebook, the Twitters, that is definitely me.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, hopefully everybody will go search you up and check out your art and your dolls and all that cool stuff.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Until next time.
Shane, I got to get down to Kentucky so I can see you and get tattooed by you properly.
You absolutely do. We need to make that happen. But until then.
Heck yeah.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a great evening.